In the past, Yuu had learned just how difficult it was to succeed in sales. On one occasion, while trying to sell preserved flower accessories for the science club, his efforts were met with disappointment, and he failed to sell most of his products. Defeated and disheartened, he couldn't help but feel sorry for himself as he trudged back to the science club room. To his surprise, when he arrived, a girl he had never met before was waiting for him. Himari, a fellow club member. Unlike him, she had remained in the main store and had somehow managed to sell the products he couldn't. She handed him an envelope of money, which he accepted, though he avoided meeting her eyes. He became visibly flustered, unable to handle the presence of a pretty girl. Curious, Himari questioned him about the flower-selling activity, noting that it wasn't part of their official club duties. Yuu explained that he had convinced their advisor to allow it as a personal project. Reluctantly, he opened up about his dream of becoming a flower accessory maker, an ambition that went against his parents' wishes. Determined to prove him wrong, he had set a goal to sell 100 accessories during the school festival. Suddenly, Himari burst into laughter. She joked that any parent would be against such a reckless life plan, but she acknowledged his determination. Observing that he still had a long way to go, she decided then and there to help him. Though she didn't reveal their strategy, she promised to handle the marketing herself. That moment marked the beginning of Yuu and Himari's unexpected friendship. 2 years have passed since that day, and Himari and Yuu remain the closest of friends. Himari continues to use her natural charm and popularity to promote Yuu's handcrafted flower accessories, helping his small business steadily grow. What started as a simple school project has now become a home-based operation. This afternoon after class, he sits in the science lab, his usual workspace, carefully laying out newly preserved flowers, their colors vibrant under the soft light. As he begins making them into accessories, a sense of contentment settles over him. He's grateful for the calmness of this life, for being able to create what he loves in peace. People, like his sister, often tell him he's too introverted, but he sees it as a gift. His reserved nature grants him the focus and solitude needed for his craft. Deep in concentration, he doesn't notice when Himari sneaks up behind him until she suddenly leaps onto his back. He lightly scolds her since she disturbs his concentration. Himari refuses, complaining that she's been sitting there for over an hour, completely ignored while he obsessively tinkers with flower petals. With an eager gaze, she urges him to call it a day and spend some time with her. He hesitates, but eventually admits that he's been thinking about the cultural festival lately, the one from 2 years ago that started everything. So much has changed since then, but the bond between them has only grown stronger. After some gentle teasing and her usual persistence, Himari finally convinces him to pack up early and walk home together. A memory from 2 years ago drifts into Yuu's mind. It was shortly after they had managed to sell all the flower accessories during the festival. Yuu had finally asked Himari why she had gone so far to help him. Without hesitation, Himari confessed that she genuinely enjoyed accessories and simply wanted to sell them. She also admitted with a sheepish smile that part of her motivation was to earn the necklace Yuu had given her as a thank you gift. With a playful glint in her eyes, she declared that she would continue supporting him and promoting his creations. She even revealed, half-teasing, that she had been spying on him during his work sessions, watching as he carefully crafted each piece and even witnessing the moments he grew emotional while plucking flowers from the garden. At first, Himari admitted she had only intended to buy a choker from him and leave it at that. But after hearing his story and seeing his passion, something changed. She told him she had made a wish to her older brother on his behalf, though she refused to say what it was. Then, without warning, she asked Yuu for his eyes. Startled, Yuu dropped his burger and stared at her, completely bewildered. She caught the burger, took a bite, and quickly clarified that what she meant was she loved how his eyes sparkled when he worked on his creations. She wanted to be the only one to see that side of him. With a grin, she vowed to help sell as many accessories as she could and boldly expressed her desire to become his best friend. Wordlessly, Yuu leaned over and took a bite from the burger in her hand, marking their unusual partnership. In the present, Yuu and Himari stopped by a cozy sushi restaurant tucked away in a quiet part of town. As they share a meal, their conversation turns to Himari's future. She's been receiving multiple scouting offers, but she continues to turn them down. Her reason is always the same. She wants to stay by Yuu's side and keep promoting his flower accessory business. Over the years, a lighthearted joke has taken root between them. If Yuu fails to turn his modest home-based shop into a full-fledged physical store, then he'll have to marry her. It began as playful teasing, but it has gone on for so long that even Himari's older brother Hibari has grown fond of Yuu, often treating him like family. As they eat, the topic shifts toward relationships. Himari points out how Yuu's inability to date stems from their unusual closeness, while she, despite maintaining their odd friendship, has still managed to date casually. She admits that none of those relationships meant much to her, and she never truly sought romance. Still, she's aware that if she continues to avoid settling down, her parents might eventually arrange a marriage for her, most likely with someone significantly older. The thought seems to weigh on Yuu, and Himari, noticing this, pretends to continue the conversation seriously before suddenly laughing it off. Later that evening, back in his room, Yuu refocuses on an order that had come in. As he reads through the details, something about it stirs a memory to resurface. At one point in the past, Himari had confided in Yuu that she struggled to develop romantic feelings for anyone. Yuu admitted that his unusual hobby of making flower accessories had often driven girls away. Hearing that, she proposed they make a pact. If they were both still single by the time they turned 30, they should live together and get married, just to avoid ending up alone. But Yuu had quickly refused. Instead of being offended, Himari had burst into laughter and leaped onto his back in excitement. Snapping out of his brief trip down memory lane, Yuu drops by his sister's place to deliver something she had asked for. Before leaving, he gently reminds her about the flowers he requested earlier, ones he needs to complete a few more accessory orders. The next day at school, Himari finds herself approached by an upperclassman. He casually asks about her relationship with Yuu, clearly curious about their closeness. Rather than entertain the question, she gives him no direct answer, choosing to walk away from him. As she stares out the window, the sunlight warming her face, she begins to reflect. Over the years, she's always claimed they were just best friends, but even she can't deny the strange fluttering in her chest that occasionally surfaces when she's around Yuu. Still, she knows herself well enough to understand that if she had truly wanted something romantic, she would have acted on it long ago. She smiles softly at the thought of a future where Yuu were to fall in love with someone else someday, hoping that person will accept her too, because more than anything, she doesn't want their friendship to end. Elsewhere, Yuu stands by a vending machine, buying a carton of milk. As he considers buying one for Himari, the sound of footsteps catches his attention. A girl with long black hair walks up beside him to purchase a drink, and for a moment, he finds himself completely mesmerized. Her quiet beauty catches him off guard, and his mind instinctively starts imagining which accessories might suit her best. Then he notices something surprising. She's wearing one of his bracelets. It's a design that didn't sell well, only Himari had bought one, and the other had sold during the cultural festival years ago. Before he can process the thought, the bracelet snaps, and the girl crouches down, visibly upset as she tries to fix it. Without hesitation, Yuu offers to fix it, but the girl reacts defensively around him. Embarrassed by his own impulsiveness, he quickly retreats, sprinting down the hall and silently swearing never to tell Himari about this moment. During class, instead of focusing on the lecture being given at the front of the room, Yuu and Himari are trading text messages. Yuu has reluctantly told her about the incident by the vending machine, and ever since, Himari has been overly excited, flooding his inbox with teasing comments and far-fetched theories about this mysterious girl. Eventually, Yuu stops replying, deciding he's had enough of her overactive imagination. This, however, only fuels Himari's determination to get a response. When Yuu finally turns to scold her under his breath, the teacher suddenly calls him, having only noticed him raise his voice, none of Himari's antics. Later that day in the science lab, Himari tries to lift his mood by casually pointing out that he should be proud. Someone out there had kept one of his earliest accessories for years. Before he can respond, the lab door opens and Shinji walks in looking for Yuu. Himari immediately picks up on his presence, and without warning, the atmosphere shifts into something more competitive. Though neither of them says it outright, a strange tension rises as both Shinji and Himari act like they're trying to stake their claim over Yuu. Confused by the sudden shift, Yuu watches in disinterest. He knows they had a brief relationship back in middle school, but the chill between them now feels deeper than simple exes being awkward. Then Himari leans out the lab window and starts yelling to the school grounds below, loudly accusing Shinji of dating 5 girls at once during middle school, along with several other outrageous claims. Shinji retaliates without hesitation, shouting his own version of events, stating that Himari treated their relationship like a game born out of boredom. Trying to shut down the chaos, Yuu interrupts and finally asks why Shinji came looking for him. Shinji reveals that Yuu had unknowingly bumped into his friend Rin, whom he affectionately calls Rin, and that she's been trying to work up the nerve to ask if you can fix her bracelet. As Rin steps out from the hallway, Himari immediately recognizes her. Later, during lunch, Yuu and Himari sit together discussing the coincidence. Rin turns out to be one of Himari's childhood friends, and Himari suspects the bracelet may have been passed down by Rin's older sister, who once bought and helped promote Yuu's accessories during the second day of the cultural festival. After school, the three meet again so Yuu can examine the broken bracelet. As he studies it carefully, Rin suddenly misreads his silence as a sign that he doesn't know how to fix it. Her expression shifts to one of intense frustration, and she leans in close, her presence sharp and intimidating. Himari casually pulls out a compact mirror and shows Rin what she looks like mid-glare. Shocked by her own appearance, Rin stumbles backward in surprise and ends up falling onto the ground. Trying to recover her composure, she quickly demands that Yuu fix the bracelet anyway. Himari, grinning, teases her for falling on her own, poking fun at how clumsy she still is. The moment sparks another memory for Rin, of how Himari used to make fun of her during their childhood. Yuu's gaze shifts between the two girls in front of him. For someone who had initially appeared elegant and refined, Rin's sudden burst of aggression takes him completely by surprise. What unsettles him more is how effortlessly she restrains Himari, who actually seems slightly intimidated for the first time in their friendship. Just when it looks like things are calming down, Himari tests her luck by grabbing Rin's chest. This, unsurprisingly, pushes Rin over the edge. She begins flailing Himari around in irritation. Eventually, Himari concedes defeat and is forced to sit on a table. With the room slightly calmer, Yuu turns his attention to Rin's bracelet, and the two begin discussing the best way to repair it. As Yuu begins his work, he slips into a familiar focused trance, shutting out the world around him. Himari takes advantage of this and makes her way back to the table, trying to convince Rin to join her in playing a prank on Yuu. By the time Yuu finishes the repair, he finally notices that something feels off. The girls are giggling quietly, and when he reaches his head, he notices that it's tied up in several bows. Flustered, he scrambles to remove them, while Himari and Rin double over with laughter. Once the laughter dies down, Rin slips the bracelet onto her wrist. Her expression softens as she admires the restored accessory, offering Yuu a rare, sincere smile. As Yuu walks home, Rin and Himari head toward the bus stop. Curious, Rin questions Himari about her relationship with Yuu. Himari gives her usual answer. They've been friends since middle school and brushes it off lightly. She teases Rin about possibly liking him, which Rin quickly denies, but her tone lacks conviction. While waiting for the bus, Rin brings up the idea of receiving an anonymous confession to Himari. Curious how Himari would react to such a scenario. She admits that ever since receiving the bracelet years ago, she's felt a quiet affection for its unknown creator. But now, after seeing Yuu work, she's convinced he might be the one behind all the accessories, including the one Himari wears with such pride online. Himari turns to face away from her, a sudden tightness in her chest. For the first time, the world she had built around her quiet bond with Yuu feels like it is shattering. One morning, Yuu is having breakfast and wonders how he is now talking to another girl besides Himari. His sister walks in and immediately notices that Yuu seems more fatigued than usual, raising her concern. He decides to tell her about his unusual encounter with Rin. Sakura points out that having Rin as a new friend might be good for inspiration. She notes that all of his recent accessories have started to look similar and blames it on the fact that he's only been making pieces with Himari in mind. With Rin around, Yuu might get a stroke of inspiration and create new and exciting designs. Yuu tries to argue that his sales have been doing well, but Sakura counters that he hasn't had a single repeat customer. As Yuu gets up to leave, she reminds him of the promise he made. If he fails to grow his flower accessory business, he'll have to take over the family convenience store and marry Himari. During class, Yuu can't stop thinking about what his sister said. He realizes she might have a point. His shop doesn't have any repeat customers. He is so lost in thought that he doesn't notice Himari glancing at him. In the hallway, Shinji confronts Rin about her encounter with Yuu, offering to help her win Yuu's heart, but Rin refuses to reveal anything. Just then, Himari spots them and approaches, quickly getting into another argument with Shinji. They only stop when some girls from the tennis club approach to ask for Shinji's help. When he leaves, Himari takes the opportunity to speak to Rin in private, making Rin a bit uneasy about what the conversation might be. Meanwhile, Yuu is watering the flowers in the school garden when Himari jumps on his back. She says she noticed how distracted he was during class and wants to know what's going on. Yuu tells her about his plan to change the theme for his next batch of accessories. He's thinking of exploring romance and rejection. This amuses Himari, who starts slapping his back playfully, finding it funny that Yuu, of all people, would focus on romance. Yuu shares more about his conversation with Sakura and Himari agrees. It might be a good idea to finally consider things from a buyer's perspective instead of just making what he personally likes. Yuu is surprised to see how excited Himari seems about the new theme, considering she often says she can't feel romantic emotions. Himari counters that she's popular and loved by many boys, so between the two of them she clearly has more experience in the romance department. Yuu decides to test her and asks what Himari really knows about the concept of love. Without hesitation, Himari says that love is the desire to be physically intimate with someone. Yuu argues that her definition sounds more like lust, but Himari counters that such feelings often stem from love. Curious, Yuu presses her to explain further, admitting he doesn't fully understand the difference between love and lust. Himari says lust can be born from love, then throws the question back at him if he has a certain type of girl he has desires for. Before Yuu can process the question, Himari begins describing Rin's characteristics and asks if he's ever felt the urge to kiss her. Yuu looks at her, unamused by her sudden attempt at playing matchmaker. Himari quickly clarifies that she's only suggesting Rin as a source of inspiration. It might be easier, she claims, to create accessories with a person in mind. Yuu admits he's never had the urge to kiss any girl. Himari then casually suggests he try kissing her to finally understand what it feels like. The idea flusters Yuu, and he asks if Himari even sees him as a man. With complete confidence, Himari answers that she only sees him as a best friend. She insists that it will be a valuable experience for them both, especially since neither of them has kissed anyone before. Just as Yuu starts to see the logic in her reasoning, he realizes that kissing between friends is probably inappropriate. Seeing the hesitation in his expression, Himari grabs his hand, demonstrating how easy it is for them to be physically close. Yuu immediately feels that even holding hands is already crossing a line. Still, Himari pushes her idea further and suggests they go through with a kiss. She begins pulling him down, slowly closing the distance. Yuu starts to panic, not expecting her to actually go through with it. As she inches closer, he can't help but notice how beautiful she is. He closes his eyes, bracing himself for the kiss, but nothing happens as he doesn't feel her lips. He opens his eyes to find Himari barely holding back her laughter before bursting out laughing. Yuu crouches down, disappointed in himself for even thinking she was serious. Realizing she may have pushed too far, Himari promises to make it up to him. She tells him to keep his Saturday free but refuses to reveal what she has planned. When Saturday arrives, Yuu is surprised to be picked up by Himari's brother, Himari, who cheerfully admits he's missed Yuu terribly. Yuu thanks him for the sushi the other day and casually mentions his older sister, someone Himari knows since they were schoolmates back in the day. Himari reveals that Sakura was very popular in school and known for being a genius. The comment makes Yuu feel a bit self-conscious about how different he and Sakura are in terms of academics and social standing. Noticing Yuu's unease, Himari tries to reassure him, saying that Yuu has his own unique talents that he should be proud of. He even jokingly invites Yuu to just stay at their house forever and focus on making accessories full-time. When Himari drops Yuu off, he expresses disappointment at not being able to spend more time with him. He drives off in a rush, saying he needs to head back to work. Yuu stares after the disappearing car, quietly realizing how spontaneous both Himari and Himari are. Just then, Himari appears and immediately criticizes Yuu's outfit, saying it isn't fashionable. Yuu takes a moment to scan Himari's look and notices how much effort she puts into looking cute every day. He defends himself, saying that Himari was too excited and didn't give him time to change into something better. Himari then drops the surprise that she brought Rin along to hang out with them today. They stop at a cafe to grab a meal, but Yuu finds it difficult to talk to Rin, who seems distant again. Himari tries to break the awkwardness by bringing up Yuu's next accessory photo shoot. She excitedly suggests that Rin be his new model and reveals that Rin has already agreed to do it. As they begin to eat, Himari explains that Rin wants to repay Yuu for fixing her bracelet. So she took the initiative and suggested Rin model for him. She adds that the shoot will be held in Rin's family's sweet shop, which visibly shocks Rin. Without a word, Rin excuses herself to call her mom and ask for permission. Later, they visit an accessory shop where Yuu is visibly thrilled by the flower-themed accessories. Himari manages to get his attention, and together they look at different colors and designs that might suit Rin. Yuu suddenly realizes that he might be acting a little too comfortably around Rin and backs off slightly, apologizing. Himari immediately teases him, which amuses Rin, watching the two of them interact so naturally. Eventually, the group begins trying different accessories on Rin. Himari suggests that Yuu be the one to put the red necklace around Rin's neck. Yuu does what he's told without much thought, assuming Rin, like Himari, doesn't see him as a man. But as he clasps the red necklace around her neck, he notices a shift. Rin stiffens slightly, her breath hitching, subtle signs of fluster that don't go unnoticed by Himari. Sensing an opportunity, she casually points out how revealing Rin's clothes are, sparking immediate embarrassment. Rin, red-faced and annoyed, reacts by lifting Himari into the air in retaliation. Their next stop is the flower section of the shop, where they browse for balloons to inspire Yuu's new accessory line. Rin's attention is quickly drawn to the violet wisteria blossoms. There's a faraway look in her eyes as she gazes at them, murmuring something about how beautiful they are and how they remind her of something from her past. Yuu catches the wistfulness in her tone and glances at her with curiosity, but when Yuu questions her, Rin brushes off the moment and offers no further explanation. Himari soon calls out, asking if Yuu is done picking flowers and suggesting that he should consider using roses. Yuu, however, disagrees. He feels that roses wouldn't suit Rin. Her beauty, he thinks, more honest, subtle but striking. He says as much, and the words hang in the air. Realizing what he's just admitted, he tries to play it off, but Himari beams with satisfaction before heading off to buy drinks, leaving Rin and Yuu alone. As she makes her way to a cafe, she quietly decides that if someone were to win Yuu's heart, she wouldn't mind if it were Rin. With Himari gone, Yuu takes the opportunity to apologize for earlier, unsure if he made Rin uncomfortable. Their conversation drifts toward how Rin and Himari became friends. He was surprised to learn that Himari wasn't always outgoing. It was Rin who approached her first and asked to be friends. The revelation changes the way Yuu sees Rin, adding depth to her quiet demeanor. Rin mentions wanting to use large flowers for accessories, and Yuu agrees, saying her looks could easily carry such bold designs. When he realizes he's just called her beautiful out loud, he awkwardly backtracks and Rin turns away, trying to hide the color rising in her cheeks. To ease the moment, Yuu begins scanning the shop again, his eyes landing on a group of tulips. He lights up, declaring them perfect for what Rin has in mind. He talks animatedly, praising their vivid colors and well-maintained petals. As he speaks, he doesn't notice how closely Rin is listening. He eventually realizes he's been rambling and assumes he's boring her. In a rush to wrap things up, he grabs the tulips and moves toward the counter. But just before he can walk away, Rin gently tugs at his sleeve. He pauses, surprised by the quiet plea in her touch to continue his story on how he loves flowers. Something about her stillness, her expression, strikes him. Rin reminds him of it. There's a pull to her presence, something that lingers and draws him in the longer he looks. Before he knows it, he's speaking again about how he's come to realize his passion for flowers. During an outing with his family at a botanical garden, Yuu ended up getting separated from them. He roamed the winding paths alone, hoping to find familiar faces, when he stumbled upon a young girl who appeared just as lost as he was. Deciding to help each other, they began searching for their parents together, wandering through rows of blooming plants. As they walked, the girl became captivated by a vibrant red flower, her eyes lighting up with delight. Moved by her reaction, Yuu decided to pay for the flower so she could take it home. She clutched it carefully, promising to wear it every day. Eventually, they found the girl's parents. Yuu watched her leave, the image of her smiling with the red bloom etched in his memory. Though he knew the flower would eventually wither, the moment stayed with him. That day marked the beginning of his love for flowers. Yuu admits that after that day, he became determined to preserve the beauty of flowers, hoping to one day protect moments like that from fading. Deep down, he wishes that the girl might somehow find his work again. Rin suddenly asks if the flower had been a hibiscus. She confesses that she had fallen in love with it that day and recalls how Yuu told her the color suited her. That single comment made her feel beautiful, even with the hair she used to hate. Yuu stares at her stunned. Gratitude and disbelief fill him as he realizes that the girl from the garden is Rin. The inspiration behind everything he has built stands before him, smiling the same way she did years ago, with the same hibiscus bloom mirrored in her expression. As the sun dips below the horizon, Yuu becomes concerned about Himari, wondering if she got home safely. Rin suggests they exchange numbers before parting ways. Meanwhile, Himari lies in bed, restless. The image of Rin and Yuu sharing a quiet moment in the flower shop replays in her mind. She knows she should be happy for them. They look perfect together. But a growing unease settles in her chest. The look in Yuu's eyes when he gazed at Rin lingers, and it unsettles her more than she expected. One morning, Yuu drags his feet on the way to school, his thoughts consumed by the revelation that Rin was his first love all along. The realization has left him restless, unable to sleep over the weekend as he replays the memory again and again. He had attempted to reach out to Himari through text, but she repeatedly left his messages on read, offering no explanation. Out of nowhere, Himari greets him with a cheerful good morning, her tone bright but her body language reserved. She keeps a deliberate distance from him, which immediately strikes Yuu as odd. He tries to get to the bottom of her strange behavior, pushing her for answers about her sudden disappearance on Saturday and her refusal to respond to his messages. Himari dodges his questions effortlessly, brushing him off with a flimsy excuse about maintaining a 3-meter distance from him. Before Yuu can challenge her any further, Rin appears beside him, offering her soft greeting. She waits expectantly and Yuu returns the gesture, albeit distractedly. Her expression changes subtly, sensing that something weighs on his mind. Following his silent gesture toward the lockers, Rin quickly locates Himari, trying to hide behind them. Rin calls out that she brought cookies, successfully luring Himari out from her hiding spot. Himari rushes over, only to be effortlessly grabbed by the head by Rin, who scolds her with practiced ease. As the three of them walk together toward their classrooms, Yuu listens in silence to the way Rin nags Himari. He briefly wonders how the two maintain their friendship with such different temperaments. Before they separate, Rin hands Yuu a small, carefully wrapped pack of her homemade cookies. He stares at them in surprise, noting the intricate designs and delicate attention to detail. When she leaves to enter her classroom, he finds himself watching her retreating figure, his cheeks growing warm without warning. Himari immediately picks up on his reaction and doesn't waste the opportunity to tease him about his growing affection toward Rin. She keeps it up until their lunch break on the rooftop, finally poking fun at the moment you realize Rin was the girl from his past. Irritated, Yuu pins her lightly against the rooftop railings, demanding to know why she was eavesdropping and what's behind her bizarre behavior lately. He pauses when he notices her flustered expression, something he rarely sees on her. She calls him strange, but Yuu retorts that she's the one acting odd, especially with her constant assumptions that he and Rin share mutual feelings. He insists that she's making things more complicated between them. Without another word, Himari shoves a cold drink into his hands and steps away, telling him to cool off. Yuu watches her leave, the embarrassed look on her face lingering in his mind. As he sips from the drink, a cooling sensation soothes his body, but his thoughts remain fixated on Himari. For the first time in a long time, he quietly admits to himself that she looked cute. Later that day at the school's science lab, Rin is fascinated as the vibrant petals begin to pale into pure white, captivated by the transformation. She wonders aloud how he plans to restore their original color for the accessory. He tells Rin that he'll begin recoloring them soon, having saved the original pigments to ensure they retain their vibrant hue. It's a tedious part of the process, but he explains that it's necessary to bring out the natural beauty of the flower while maintaining the essence of his former self. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices Himari trying to bother him as usual. He snaps, calling her out and telling her to stop distracting him. Himari refuses with a grin, clearly amused by his frustration. With an exasperated sigh, Yuu turns to Ryun and asks if she can restrain Himari. Ryun obliges, gripping Himari's shoulders and handing her a drink, one of her favorites, which keeps her still for a moment. Yuu thanks Ryun, explaining that he usually takes much longer on his projects because Himari always manages to throw him off. Himari feigns as if she has just been insulted, shooting back that he actually enjoys her bothering him and even used to flirt back before Ryun started joining them. Yuu groans and scolds her for being shameless in front of Ryun, but Himari only doubles down, suggesting they go back to acting normal and resume their infamous pretend kiss. Yuu stares at her in horror, his panic rising. He jumps up and grips her shoulders tightly, calling her strange for even bringing that up. But Himari, always quick-witted, traps him with her words, making him accidentally admit that the incident had indeed happened. Ryun slowly rises from her seat and excuses herself without looking at either of them. Yuu stares at the door in disbelief and turns sharply to Himari, ready to scold her, but she's already rolling on the table, laughing uncontrollably. She calls out for him to help her up, and with a sigh of resignation, Yuu moves toward her, ready to pull her up. Instead of taking his hand, Himari tugs him down so he falls over her. With a mischievous gleam in her eyes, she suggests that they should kiss, since Ryun already believes it happened anyway. Besides, she reminds him they once made a pact to be each other's companions by the time they turn 30 if neither of them has found love. Yuu flushes, insisting that the pact was something she made up on her own. But Himari's tone softens as she tells him she was always serious about it. She suggests that maybe sharing a kiss could help them understand the feeling of love better, for the sake of their accessory making. Yuu stares at her stunned, his heart beats faster, not just from embarrassment, but from the confusing mix of emotions swelling inside him. Slowly, he begins to close the distance. But before anything can happen, he hears a sudden click, the unmistakable sound of phone camera. He blinks, turning his head, and sees Himari holding her phone at an angle, snapping a photo of him leaning in. Before he can react, she bursts into laughter, clutching her stomach and babbling about how funny it would be to prank Ryun with the picture. Yuu stares at the candid shot of the almost kiss, feeling equal parts embarrassed and betrayed. Himari grins, completely unbothered. He helps her up, this time successfully, and returns to his seat without another word. Himari turns away from him, her smile slowly fading. She murmurs under her breath, barely audible, calling him an idiot for not going through with it. But Yuu, too wrapped up in his own confusion, doesn't hear her. When he asks what she just said, Himari immediately fires off a series of playful insults about his obsession with flowers and how weird his hobbies are. Before he can retaliate, she leaves the room, waving him off like nothing happened. Yuu collapses on his seat, confused over Himari's actions, unaware that Himari, despite her teasing, is just as lost in her feelings as he is. The next day, Shinji pulls Yuu aside during a break and suggests they head to the school garden. As Yuu begins watering the flower beds, Shinji wastes no time getting to the point. He casually asks how things are going between Yuu and Ryun, pointing out that Ryun already confessed. Yuu pauses, confused since he does not remember a confession. He remembers the moment they realized they were each other's first love, but that never felt like a proper confession. They hadn't talked about dating, hadn't even touched the idea of becoming something more. Shinji raises an eyebrow and argues that it counts, especially since Ryun's been making him cookies, a clear sign she's interested. Yuu shrugs, unsure. He admits that his feelings are still a bit tangled, not because he doesn't like Ryun, but because everything feels overwhelming lately. He mentions that Himari has been acting strange too. Clingy as always, but lately she's been bolder, more forceful. This catches Shinji's attention. He hums thoughtfully, deciding it might be worth looking deeper into Himari's sudden shift in behavior. Later that day, the trio, Yuu, Ryun, and Himari, gathers in the science lab to inspect the preserved tulips. The colors are vibrant, the peels crisp and intact. Ryun is in awe, complimenting Yuu on how real they still look. Himari, as expected, turns the moment into another opportunity to make fun of Yuu's flirting skills. Yuu ignores the remark and hands Ryun a set of prototype accessories, asking her to try them on for test shots. As Ryun adjusts them and poses, Himari sneaks up beside Yuu and whispers that he should tell Ryun to pose more suggestively. Yuu sighs, scolds her lightly, and refocuses on the task at hand. It bothers him that no matter what he tries, the poses look too similar to Himari's, and he is unable to capture Ryun for her own beauty. He studies Ryun carefully, noticing her old bracelet, the same one from years ago. Inspiration hits him. He quickly approaches Ryun and blurts out that he wants a photo of her as the Queen of the Night, referencing the alluring and mysterious flower she once reminded him of. Ryun blinks, clearly confused. Yuu hesitates, ready to dismiss the idea, but Himari steps in. She waves Yuu back, telling him to keep his phone ready. Then she leans in close to Ryun, whispering something in her ear. Whatever she says causes Ryun to look at Yuu with wide eyes, her expression soft and vulnerable. In that moment, Yuu sees it, that fleeting beauty he's been trying to capture, so he snaps the photo. The shot is perfect, but he notices something off. Ryun still seems unsettled. He quietly asks her what's wrong, but before she can answer, Himari cuts in with a laugh, brushing off the moment as a joke and teasing Ryun for believing her whisper. Ryun pounces on Himari in outrage. Once the chaos dies down, Yuu confirms that the emotion in the photo is exactly what he wants the new accessory line to reflect: elegance, mystery, and warmth. On the walk home, Yuu finally confronts Himari, asking her what she whispered to Ryun. She refuses to say, leaving Yuu in the dark once again. Suddenly, Himari brings up a request. She asks Yuu if he can make her a similar tulip accessory for when she eventually falls in love. Yuu pauses, taken off guard, and glances at her, noticing how the setting sun reflects softly on her features. For a moment, he takes the chance to admire her. He has always known she was beautiful, but she looks breathtaking to him today. His eyes briefly land on the choker she still wears, the one he gave her a long time ago. A promise comes back to him, one where he swore to protect her, even if she never asked him to. With a playful smile, he brushes off her request, teasing her by reminding her that they're just best friends. That night, Himari finds herself unable to sleep. No matter how much she tosses and turns, her thoughts are filled with the image of Yuu and Ryun. She tries to push it away, but the way Yuu looked at Ryun in the garden lingers in her mind. Gentle, soft, affectionate. She realizes she wanted that look to be meant for her. Maybe, deep down, she's always wanted that. Looking back, she's always clung to him. She played the role of the best friend, the teasing one, the loud one, the one who always stuck by him no matter what. But now, that same title feels like it's starting to hurt her. She doesn't want to lose him entirely, so she quietly vows to pull herself back, just enough so she can stay by his side, even if it means staying in the shadows. A few days later, Shinji, Himari, Yuu, and Ryun gather at a sushi house to celebrate the completion of Yuu's new accessory. Himari and Shinji bicker as usual, while Yuu tries to keep things calm between them. Yuu eventually brings out his newest piece, a beautiful red hairpin designed with the tulip they preserved. When he gives it to Ryun, Himari quickly jumps in, masking her discomfort with fake excitement. Shinji observes her carefully, and an idea sparks in his mind. To test something, Shinji suggests that Yuu should clip the accessory on Ryun himself. Yuu hesitates but eventually gives in, carefully placing the hairpin on her hair. Ryun beams, her eyes sparkling as she admires it. Himari and Shinji look away, both thinking the moment should have been private, not something they had to witness. Shinji pushes it even further, suggesting Ryun become Yuu's permanent model. That sets Himari off, since it means Ryun will be working closely with Yuu. She agrees with the idea being good for sales, but argues that Ryun might not be ready for the pressure that comes with attention. This starts a full-on argument between her and Shinji. Himari insists she's only looking out for Ryun, but Shinji accuses her of being scared. Scared that Ryun is taking a spot she doesn't want to admit she wants. Himari looks at Yuu, silently asking him to say something in her defense. But Yuu doesn't see the issue. He's fine with Ryun modeling for him, especially if Ryun herself is okay with it. He even points out that it was Himari's idea in the first place, then calls out her recent behavior, saying it's been bothersome. What he doesn't say out loud is how much harder things are getting now that his feelings for her are slowly shifting. He needs Ryun to stay grounded, especially when Himari is making things so complicated. Himari, now completely overwhelmed, looks around for her yogurt to calm herself down. When she realizes it's gone, she finally snaps. She pours the last of her drink on Yuu's head and stands up, declaring that their friendship is over, causing both her and Yuu to scream at each other. When Yuu was younger, he had always been drawn to beautiful things, especially flowers. The delicate process of preserving them had become an outlet for him. Even in class, he would discreetly hide a book about flowers, reading during lectures. This quiet fascination stayed with him well into middle school, where he remained a solitary figure, finding comfort in the quiet corners of classrooms, where he buried his nose in a book about flowers. But just as he thought he had mastered the art of staying unnoticed, Himari entered his life. He remembered with unusual clarity the day she approached and refused to take no for an answer when she asked him to have lunch with her. Though he initially insisted on being alone, she had handed him a drink and practically pulled him along, undeterred by his hesitation. Some of her friends saw them together and appeared visibly disappointed, likely because they had expected her to spend time with them instead. Himari exchanged lighthearted banter with them, her tone playful and teasing, while Yuu lingered nearby, unsure of how to navigate the sudden attention. Before he could retreat, she had taken his arm and led him to the science lab to have their usual lunch. As they settled into their meal, she confronted him about his recent distance, a question that caught him off guard and left him choking on his food. He hadn't intended to avoid her, but when classmates began approaching him, urging him to stop spending time with her for her own social good, he had quietly withdrawn, believing it was in her best interest. Himari took out her phone and revealed a string of messages from one of the boys who had encouraged her to drop him. Despite already being in a relationship, the boy had confessed to wanting to be with her and even offered to end things with his girlfriend to pursue her. There was also a message from the girlfriend accusing Himari of stealing her boyfriend. She explained that while the popular crowd might appear attractive from afar, it was rarely sincere. She admitted that she felt exhausted by the social games and would rather spend her time in peace, simply watching you work. At that moment, she reached for his hand and made him promise they would stay best friends forever, and more importantly, that he would never fall in love with her so that their bond could remain untainted. A little flustered, he gave his word, and just as he did, she turned away briefly, only to turn back with a mischievous smile and the soft sound of an audio recording of their promise. Utterly mortified, Yuu chased her through the lab in protest until they were out of breath. As they rested, she casually mentioned the idea of pretending to be a couple just to keep persistent boys at bay. Yuu refused without hesitation, not wanting to become entangled in any more school gossip. But Himari laced her fingers with his and jokingly proposed that they date for real, though he would see through the jest and continued to turn down the offer. In the present day, Yuu finds himself hopelessly in love with Himari, still haunted by the thought that the perfect chance to confess his feelings slipped through his fingers the day he gave her the ring. As he spots her waving at him outside the building, a warm smile on her face, he tries to play it cool. Instead, his awkward attempt at being casual prompts Himari to react in disgust. She teases him, saying he looks like he has a stomachache, and their usual rhythm as best friends kicks in, bantering as they head to class. As they walk, Yuu's eyes drift to her hands, and he notices the ring isn't on her finger. Himari tilts her head and taps the choker around her neck. It's now looped through her belt like a pendant. Yuu blinks, momentarily stunned by how effortlessly she makes it look good. He lightly suggests he could make a new one, since the choker is clearly aging, but Himari immediately declines his offer since the belt is special. Yuu leans in for a better look but pulls back just as quickly when he realizes he's staring a little too long. In an attempt to break the tension, Himari suddenly jokes that if he's that obsessed with her, maybe they should just date for real. So Yuu, trying to match her tone and test the waters, throws back a fake confession. He tells her he likes her, and then adds he's kidding. Himari's face doesn't change, but her silence is sharp. She sips her drink slowly, eyes on him, and calmly tells him his delivery was obviously fake. Before he can respond, she claims she just remembered something and excuses herself. Alone in the girls' bathroom, Himari grips the sink. Water splashes her cheeks as she tries to steady her breathing. For a second, she believed him in her heart and almost spilled everything, her feelings, even the recent message from Ryun. Meanwhile, Yuu was on his way to class when a student calls him to the faculty office. At lunch, Himari learns that Yuu had turned in his midterm paper nearly blank, having fallen asleep during the exam after staying up too late crafting Ryun's accessory. The school had granted him a chance by allowing him a retake this Sunday. Wanting to support him, Himari gives him her favorite drink and offers to help him study. She also brings up that people have found out he's the artist behind the preserved flower accessories. To her surprise, Yuu doesn't seem bothered. His indifference unsettles her. She warns him that once word spreads, girls will swarm him, all wanting to model, and knowing Yuu, he'll say yes, just like he did with Ryun. Seeing how overwhelmed Himari becomes, Yuu firmly places a hand on her shoulder to steady her. He assures her that she'll always be his #1 model. The sincerity in his eyes, paired with their sudden closeness, makes Himari's heart skip, only to lose her emotions and slap him out of sheer embarrassment. He scolds her for treating him so harshly, but Himari only snaps back that it's his fault for being so painfully cheesy. Before their bickering can continue, Yuu's gaze drifts toward the entrance leading to the hallway and spots Ryun watching them with unreadable intensity. Something feels off. Usually, Himari would brighten up at the sight of Ryun and wave or call out, but this time she remains tense and quiet. Sensing the tension, Yuu decides to break the silence and greets Ryun himself, trying to gauge how long she's been standing there. Ryun answers coldly, admitting she's been there since the moment Himari voiced her worry about other girls surrounding Yuu. She quickly excuses herself, walking away before either of them can respond. Later in class, neither of them manages to focus on the lecture. Himari's mind spins with thoughts she can't voice aloud. In frustration, she silently vows to keep Yuu by her side, even if that means remaining nothing more than his best friend. She then has an idea that the person responsible for leaking Yuu's identity is actually Shin. They meet on the rooftop and Shin doesn't deny it and confesses that he leaked the information to give Ryun a better chance at winning Yuu's heart. Himari responds sharply, claiming that even if Ryun cuts her off, it doesn't change the fact that Yuu will remain her best friend. But Shin isn't buying it. He accuses Himari of lying to herself, saying her feelings for Yuu are too obvious to hide. She had her chance when Yuu was ready to give up everything and go to Tokyo with her, but she didn't take it. Now he believes Ryun will win because at least Ryun acts on what she wants. Without giving away his true plan, he leaves Himari. After school, Himari and Yuu board the bus home together, their conversation shifting to study plans for his upcoming exam. They're headed to Himari's house to study with the help of Hibari. Yuu admits he hasn't been there in a year, still haunted by how extravagant her family's welcome had been the first time. As they arrive, Himari casually mentions they're alone. Yuu immediately flicks her forehead, calling her out for lying. He knows Hibari wouldn't leave without helping him study. But Himari clarifies that Hibari isn't home, he just sent the materials ahead. Yuu processes this for a moment, excitement creeping in. only to be shattered the second he steps inside and Himari greets him with a party streamer, clearly excited that Yuu is back at their home. Yuu glares at Himari as she doubles over in laughter by the doorway, clearly amused by her own trick. Once the commotion settles, they move to the living room where a towering stack of books awaits like an ominous mountain. Himari sits in full tutor mode, reading glasses perched on his nose and an eager glint in his eye that fills Yuu with dread. Yuu eyes the stack warily and finally asks why Himari isn't at work. Without missing a beat, Himari reassures him that his staff is fully capable of handling things in his absence. Today, his only duty is to make sure Yuu succeeds. He tells Yuu he's willing to do anything it takes to support him in his dream to create beautiful flower accessories. Grades shouldn't be the thing that gets in the way, and he's committed to helping Yuu master everything he needs to know before he graduates, so he can return to his passion without fear. Yuu flinches at the sheer intensity in Himari's gaze and quickly turns to Himari, begging for help. But when he looks to the doorway, she's already halfway through closing it, her expression apologetic, though it quickly shifts to a cheeky grin as she wishes him luck with his special study session. Hours pass and night falls before the session finally ends. Himari escorts Yuu to the bath, thanking him for helping her brother blow off steam. Apparently, Himari had been swamped with work lately, and she knew her brother had a soft spot for Yuu, making him the perfect sacrificial lamb. Her laugh rings out like wind chimes, and he finds himself watching her a little too closely. Wearing a light blue yukata, she looks effortlessly graceful, and Yuu's mind starts drifting toward what kind of accessory would best match her. But before his imagination can wander further, Himari catches his stare and quickly teases him about it. When they reach the baths, Yuu is taken aback by how much it resembles an actual hot spring. As Himari exits to give him privacy, he begins to undress, shaking away any questionable thoughts. He's just about to relax when her voice suddenly calls out from behind the door, announcing that she's coming back in. Panicked, Yuu scrambles to cover himself. She teasingly offers to wash his back as an apology for abandoning him earlier. His nerves spike as he points out how inappropriate that is between opposite genders, but Himari dismisses the concern, claiming that since they're best friends, it's not weird at all. Then, with a mischievous smile, she accuses him of liking her. Deciding to turn the tables, Yuu musters his courage and confidently asks her to go ahead and wash his back. Her face turns bright red, but to his shock, she agrees, only saying she'll need a moment to prepare. She shuts the door and Yuu sits himself down, trying to figure out whether she's actually serious. Moments later, he hears someone re-enter the room. Bracing himself, he shuts his eyes as he feels someone begin to scrub his back. Curious, he peeks and lets out a horrified shriek when he finds Himari instead of Himari. Hearing his scream, Himari erupts into laughter just outside the door. Yuu sighs in defeat, telling Himari the joke wasn't funny in the slightest. Himari apologizes but asks if this kind of teasing is normal between him and Himari. Yuu flusters, scrambling to explain their friendship, but Himari waves it off. Instead, he expresses relief that the two have reconciled. Then, almost absent-mindedly, he mutters that he was worried Himari wouldn't be able to apologize properly. That confuses Yuu. He was the one who apologized, not her. Sensing something is off, Himari suddenly stands and demands the full story. As Yuu begins explaining, Himari's expression darkens. Meanwhile, Himari rolls on her bed, still cackling with delight. Her laughter comes to an abrupt halt when she hears a knock. Thinking it's Yuu, she brightens and calls for him to enter, but her smile fades when Himari steps in, eyes gleaming ominously, inviting his sister for a talk. The next morning, Himari drives them to school, offering Yuu study pointers the entire way. Yuu steals a glance at Himari, who is weeping silently in the backseat. Himari, unbothered, continues giving Yuu advice as if nothing is wrong. When they arrive, Himari wipes her tears and mutters that she's glad Himari is gone. Ryu then appears behind them and greets only Yuu with a cold good morning. He tries to explain that he stayed over for tutoring, worried about his grades. At this, something changes in Ryu. Her eyes flare with determination, and without hesitation, she announces that she'll be joining them tonight. During class, Yuu still has a hard time wrapping his head around the fact that Ryun had invited herself to his study session with Himari. Ryun sends him a message asking what she should bring, and Yuu tries to confirm if she's actually serious. It turns out Ryun is completely set on joining them, even going as far as messaging both her mom and Himari to ask for permission. Himari, noticing Yuu texting, guesses it's Ryun from the blush on his face. She teases him through a message that informs him that they can't use her place for the study session anymore. Himari doesn't want her at home for being the little sister of someone he claims to hate. As they begin brainstorming new venues for the study session, Himari questions why Yuu seems so energized when it comes to Ryun. She teases him about looking forward to a study date and even jokes about a repeat of the incident from the previous night. This flusters Yuu, who instinctively scolds her during class, resulting in the wrath of their teacher, already irritated by Yuu needing supplementary classes. During break, while walking through the halls, Yuu is approached by two girls who ask him about his flower accessory business. They request custom accessories, which makes Yuu nervous since he still hasn't figured out how to handle situations like this. Fortunately, Shinji shows up and asks the girls to leave, claiming he has something important to discuss with Yuu. The girls don't resist, especially since they dislike Shinji, and leave while promising to see Yuu another time. Meanwhile, Himari meets with Ryun regarding the study session. She feels a little confused by Ryun's actions, especially since she had assumed they were no longer on good terms. When she informs Ryun that they can't hold the session in her place, Ryun seems disappointed. Back in the garden, Yuu and Shinji have lunch together. Yuu decides to confront him after learning from Himari that Shinji is behind the identity leak. Shinji admits to spreading the information without remorse, stating that he did it so Ryun would have a better shot at winning Yuu's affection. Yuu pleads with him to stop Ryun from joining the study session, but Shinji is amused. This is the first he's hearing about it. He teases Yuu for becoming a playboy, pointing out that both girls who have a romantic interest in him will now be spending the night with him. As Yuu tries to get Shinji to take things seriously, Shinji reminds him that the situation is his own doing, especially after the intimate gesture he made by giving Himari the ring in the science lab, something both Shinji and Ryun had witnessed. On his way back to class, Yuu runs into Himari, who tells him that they should just hold the study session at his place. Despite Yuu's reluctance, especially about hosting both Himari and Ryun overnight, Himari explains that she already told Ryun since she didn't know how to reject her. Himari strikes a cute pose as she pleads once more to use Yuu's place for the study session. Yuu tries to resist, but he finds her completely adorable and begins to waver. Just then, a student council member calls out to Himari, reminding her about the meeting schedule after class. Snapping out of his daze, Yuu realizes that once again, Himari has left him in a difficult situation, this time alone with Ryun. After school, Yuu rushes straight home to make sure the house is presentable. The moment he enters his room, he's shocked by the mess and immediately sets out to clean everything before anyone arrives. By the time he finishes tidying up, the doorbell rings. He hurries to answer it and finds Ryun standing there, looking striking in a well-coordinated outfit and wearing the flower accessory he had made for her not too long ago. He welcomes her inside and explains that it will just be the two of them for a while, as his family is still working at the shop and Himari hasn't arrived yet. As Ryun looks around his room, she notices the lack of flowers. Yuu chuckles and reveals the inside of his closet, where a miniature garden is tucked away. He explains that he keeps his flowers hidden there to protect them from Dafuku, their mischievous cat, since some of the plants are harmful to animals. He brings out a small pot of baby sage and tells her that the plant is known for its calming and focusing properties, perfect for helping them study. Ryun is genuinely impressed by Yuu's knowledge of plants and his ability to incorporate them into his daily life. Yuu suggests they begin studying, and Ryun quickly offers to help, mentioning she's ranked second in their grade. Surprised, Yuu admits he didn't realize she was that smart, which prompts him to ask who holds the top rank. Ryu's expression darkens slightly as she answers, Shinji. As the session begins, Yuu finds himself struggling to stay focused, especially when his eyes wander to Ryun's chest. Embarrassed, he abruptly excuses himself under the pretense of getting them something to drink. When Yuu leaves, Ryun picks up the potted baby sage and gives it a sniff. She then notices Yuu's bed. While Yuu's preparing tea in the kitchen, his thoughts drift to comparing Himari and Ryun. He begins to hope that Himari shows up soon, but then immediately regrets the thought, realizing that the situation might become even more chaotic with both girls in his house. When he returns with the tea tray, he's surprised to find Ryun sniffing his pillow. The two lock eyes for a brief moment. Silently, they both walk back to the table, settling down across from each other. Just as the tension begins to thicken, Yuu quietly calls out her name. Ryun quickly and nervously admits she was curious about the scent on Yuu's pillow. Since the baby sage smelled so nice, she couldn't help but notice a similar fragrance coming from the pillow. Yuu, doing his best to stay composed, explains that it's likely from the tea he drinks, made from the same plant, and that he accidentally spilled some on his bed recently. Ryun takes a sip and is immediately delighted by both its aroma and taste. Momentarily forgetting her earlier embarrassment, she grabs his pillow again and gives it another sniff, confirming that it does indeed smell the same as the tea. Her candid action makes Yuu blush, and his gaze lingers as she relaxes on his bed once more. Then, without warning, Ryun quietly confesses that she loves him. Yuu freezes, stunned by the sudden declaration. It brings back memories from the time he and Himari had a falling out. During that period, he had spent most of his time with Ryun, and eventually, Ryun had confessed her feelings for loving him for 7 years. Back then, he had turned her down gently, having realized that his feelings for Himari ran deeper than he initially thought. Yet Ryun hadn't let that rejection affect her. The very next day, she greeted him like nothing had changed, still cheerful and much less reserved from before. In the present, Yuu does his best to focus on studying, while Ryun ends up falling asleep on his bed. As the sun begins to set, he tiptoes toward her, intending to wake her before Himari arrives. However, when he gets close, Ryun rolls over and pulls him into her embrace, her arms wrapping around him in her sleep. Just then, the door swings open. Himari and Sakura stand at the entrance, their eyes wide in disbelief at the scene before them. Yuu panics, struggling to free himself from Ryun's grip as he stammers out an explanation. Ryun remains blissfully asleep, giggling softly from a pleasant dream. After a moment, she finally stirs awake and quickly apologizes for her actions. Sakura watches the interaction with mild disbelief. She glances at Ryun and remarks that it's hard to believe she's really Kureha's younger sister, given how airheaded she seems. Curious, Yuu asks about Ryun's older sister, especially since he'd heard she played a role in promoting his early work. Sakura explains that she, Kureha, and Himari were once classmates and remain close friends even now. The last time they all saw each other was during New Year's. This shocks Himari, who always thought Ryun's sister was a taboo topic around Himari. Sakura assures them that as adults, Himari and Kureha are mature enough to work through their issues and maintain their friendship. Ryun expresses her thanks, admitting she never knew much about her sister's social life and was happy to hear about it. Sakura then casually asks Ryun if she really has a crush on Yuu. Seeing both Yuu and Ryun go stiff and embarrassed, she lets out a sigh and mutters that Ryun's taste in men is just as bad as her sister's. Once Sakura leaves, he turns to Himari and Ryun, quickly apologizing if his sister's words come off as rude or offensive. While munching on a slice of cake, Himari casually observes that despite Sakura outing Ryun's feelings, neither she nor Yuu seem particularly shaken by the reveal. In fact, they look more surprised than embarrassed. Yuu, not one to hide the truth, shrugs and tells Himari that Ryun has already confessed to him, 3 times in fact. By now, the awkwardness and tension between them had long since dissolved. Himari is left stunned, trying to process everything that had apparently gone on behind her back. Meanwhile, Ryun just smiles gently, watching Himari's reaction with interest. Assuming Yuu is still leaving Ryun in suspense, Himari frowns and accuses him of stringing along his first love. Before Himari can go on a full rant, Ryun reaches over and grabs her face to silence her. Smiling with warmth and optimism in her eyes, she looks at Yuu and asks if she truly is his first love. Once the moment passes, Yuu admits that Ryun was his first love, but he isn't sure if he still loves her now. He confesses that he finds her beautiful but doesn't want to give her an answer it's not genuine. He owes her more than a half-hearted reply. Rather than looking disheartened, she says she'll use what he told her today as material for her next confession. Wanting to steer the conversation elsewhere, Yuu quickly asks how the girls are doing, since he sensed some tension earlier in the day. Ryun and Himari exchange glances before admitting that they were supposed to end their friendship. Ryun confesses that she had planned to distance herself from Himari out of hurt, feeling betrayed that Himari, fully aware of her feelings for Yuu, was about to take him away to Tokyo. Yuu awkwardly admits his own involvement, since he was the one who offered to accompany Himari. But to their surprise, Ryun calmly owns up to overreacting. She reveals that Shinji had talked to her and helped her see things clearly. She realized it wasn't fair to resent Himari when you had prioritized her for the past 7 years. Rather than feeling unappreciated, she decided she would aim to become someone who's important to both of them, without standing in the way of their bond. Both Yuu and Himari are a bit confused by her declaration. But Ryun continues, rambling on about how she now admires Himari's determination and wants to contribute just as much. She wants to support both of them, not as a rival, but as a partner. Flattered and touched by her sincerity, Yuu and Himari smile and welcome her to their circle. Ryun also shares her hope to use everything she learns with them to improve her family's sweet shop. To mark the formation of their new alliance, the 3 of them huddle together and shout a cheerful call. Later that evening, Himari arrives to pick up Himari. As he drives her home, he scolds her for letting Ryun into their circle, saying it was careless and emotional. Before responding, Himari reflects on how she had once encouraged Ryun to go for Yuu, only to later find herself selfishly wanting his attention. But instead of backing down, she throws the accusation back, pointing out that she knows Himari is still secretly seeing Kureha despite claiming to hate her. Himari brushes off the remark and tells her to worry about her own future instead. He accuses her of dragging Yuu down by letting her emotions guide her decisions. He coldly tells her she's replaceable and that she shouldn't get too comfortable in her current place beside Yuu. For a moment, Himari falls silent. Then, with a serious look, she asks her brother what he expects her to do. Himari sternly tells her that for starters, she needs to stop lying to Yuu, otherwise, she may lose him forever. Not wanting that to happen, Himari quickly agrees. Himari, thinking he's finally gotten through to her, offers to treat her. But his relief turns to exasperation when she asks how honest she really needs to be with Yuu. Friday finally arrives and Yuu gets perfect marks in all his exams, so the teacher scolds him for not trying hard the first time. Sakura visits Yuu's school to address the growing concerns surrounding his accessory business. Although the teacher assures her that he is aware Yuu is not at fault, the discontent among some parents cannot be ignored. The issue lies in the perception that students were misled or pressured into spending too much on accessories due to inflated rumors. The teacher proposes a possible solution and appeals to Sakura for assistance in establishing a flexible reimbursement plan to appease the angry parents. Understanding the delicate situation, Sakura promises to consider all options and coordinate with Yuu to create a fair path forward. Meanwhile, Yuu stays home, unaware of the meeting's outcome. At school, Asumi and Mao meet with Himari by the roof. Their expressions carry regret and guilt as they express remorse for unintentionally causing trouble with their promotional efforts. They hope Himari will pass along their apology to Yuu. Though Himari accepts their sentiments outwardly, she walks away feeling disheartened that neither of them had the courage to apologize to Yuu directly. She feels the burden of their mess has been unfairly shifted onto her shoulders. While walking down the stairs, Himari spots Yuu returning to class. Determined to lift his spirits, she approaches him with cheerful energy and greets him in her usual lively way. Yuu responds with an air of detachment and takes his seat without much reaction. Though briefly concerned by his aloofness, Himari convinces herself that he just needs a little more time to return to his usual self. During lunch, Yuu heads to the school garden where he meets with Shinji. Shinji admits his role in the rumor that led to the spike in accessory orders and the ensuing backlash. Expecting anger, he offers Yuu an outlet for his frustration, but Yuu instead reflects on the nature of helping friends in need. The meeting ends quietly, with Shinji surprised by Yuu's calm and measured response. After school, Himari and Ryun walk to the science lab together, troubled by the uncertain future of their shop. Himari shares her plan to take Yuu on a weekend trip to cheer him up, believing that a change of scenery might restore his motivation. Ryun expresses concern, suggesting that Yuu may need time to rest and process everything before rushing into new plans. The suggestion frustrates Himari, who misinterprets Ryun's concern as opposition. Tension builds between the two until Himari, in a teasing tone, implies that Ryu may have known more about the rumor than she let on, given her closeness to Shinji. She also hints at having noticed Ryun's subtle attempts to get closer to Yuu. Before the conversation can escalate, both girls notice Yuu approaching with a box of returned accessories in his arms. Setting aside their disagreement, they rush to inspect the contents. The damaged pieces inside paint a harsh picture. None are fit for resale. Himari expresses frustration over the unfairness of the situation, recalling how each customer had willingly agreed to the pricing and details beforehand. However, Yuu quietly puts an end to her anger. He chooses not to argue with the teachers, with the students deciding that avoiding further conflict is the best path forward. The atmosphere in the science lab hangs heavy, the kind of silence that settles like fog, thick and unmoving. Himari refuses to let it linger. Determined to shift the mood, she launches her plan, inviting both Ryun and Yuu to join her on a weekend outing. Ryun hesitates but agrees, mentioning she's been curious to try the new tea shop at the mall. Himari jumps in excitedly, adding that she wants to shop for new clothes, and maybe Yuu can use the trip as inspiration for future accessory designs. But before she can say more, Yuu cuts her off by announcing that he plans to quit accessory making until he graduates. The words land like a slap. Himari freezes, eyes wide as she stares at him. Yuu's voice is calm, but the finality in his tone is unmistakable. He explains that pursuing his dream now feels like a mistake, that the backlash from the recent incident is too much. He plans to stop creating accessories until after graduation or maybe even longer. Himari tries to laugh, tries to pretend he's joking, but he isn't. She forces herself to speak, reminding him that the school didn't shut him down and that he still has people who believe in him. But Yuu doesn't budge. His mind is made up. He says the pause is temporary, but Himari can feel something slipping through her fingers. Desperate to break through to him, she grabs a yogurt drink and shoves it toward him, hoping it'll cool him off and give her another chance to reason with him. Yuu, agitated, tries to swat it away. Himari accidentally presses the carton a bit too hard, splashing cold yogurt all over his shirt. As he wipes the mess from his chest, Himari pleads again, her voice rising, her heart pounding. She tells him he's never more alive than when he's creating. But Yuu misinterprets her urgency. He accuses her of pushing him too hard, of not listening to what he really needs. He says she doesn't understand what it's like to feel burned out, cornered by expectations. The words sting. Himari goes quiet, her hands curling into fists. Without a word, she grabs the box of returned accessories and storms toward the window. For a second, it looks like she'll hurl it out, but she can't. She lowers it back onto the table and walks out of the lab. At home, she goes straight to her room. She doesn't cry, she just lies there, face buried in the bed, unsure what to do with the ache sitting in her chest. Later, Himari steps into the room, asking if she wants to eat. One glance at her, and he knows that she and Yuu probably fought, and it's mainly because she had pushed Yuu to work. Himari tries to explain everything, how she only pushed Yuu because she was scared. Scared that if he stopped now, he might never return to creating. Scared that the version of Yuu she admires so much might disappear. To her surprise, Himari doesn't mock her. He listens, then smiles, a rare, soft smile. He tells her she did well. She was honest, and that matters. But he also reminds her that it's not up to them to decide Yuu's path. That kind of choice belongs to Yuu alone. Challenges like this, Himari says, are part of becoming an artist. Yuu needs to face it, stumble through it, and decide for himself what kind of creator he wants to be. All they can do is wait and hope he finds his way back. Himari then tells her that if she truly cares about Yuu, then she needs to keep doing her job as his partner. Himari blinks in confusion since Himari just mentioned Yuu has to help himself. Himari smirks slightly, explaining that being strict with Yuu, coaxing him, dragging him back into creating accessories, is part of her role. If anyone can get through to Yuu, it's her. Maybe with enough stubbornness, Yuu will eventually give in. The next day, Himari finds Yuu on the rooftop. He quietly apologizes for what he said during their argument, eyes lowered in shame. Himari remains cold, her tone suddenly sharp and firm. She tells him that if he's serious about quitting accessories, then she's quitting being his best friend. Yuu stares at her in disbelief, panic rising. He doesn't understand why she's going so far, especially when he's already apologized. But Himari grabs his tie, yanking him to face her. Her eyes burn with frustration and pain. She tells him that by giving up, he's crushing her dream too, the dream of building a shop together, and she won't let him trample over it, not without a fight. She releases his tie and turns to leave, but Yuu's voice stops her. He mutters that she doesn't have the right to say that, not when she tried to run away from their dream once too. Days pass, and the weekend eventually arrives, but not a word is exchanged between them. Yuu lingers at the shoe lockers, hoping for a chance to talk to Himari. Before he can make a move, Rin appears beside him. They return to his house, where Yuu sets up a video game to teach her. Rin fumbles with the controls, mashing buttons with exaggerated confusion. Yuu watches her struggle, a small smile forming as he finds her antics unexpectedly charming. They take a break for tea. Rin sips her drink triumphantly after finally defeating one in-game opponent. Yuu tries to tell her he's genuinely enjoying himself, but Rin, still staring at the screen, calls him a liar. She says she knows him better than that. He's the kind of person who's happiest when making accessories, not wasting time gaming with her. Yuu insists again that he really intends to quit. Rin doesn't buy it. She says that if he and Himari have lasted this long as friends, he's strong enough to handle a little backlash. Yuu snaps at her, frustrated, but Rin only smiles, brighter than ever. She says it's good. Finally, he's letting his real feelings out. Moved by her sincerity, Yuu leads her upstairs to his room and shows her a pair of earrings for her to inspect. He asks her who she thinks they're for. She examines them for a moment before answering that they look like something Himari would wear. Yuu confirms that the earrings are made with Himari in mind. He admits that on the day he saw the girl destroy her accessory, he didn't feel anger. Instead, he realized something painful. He wasn't making accessories for love of the craft. He was doing it to keep Himari close. Everything, the clients, the shop, the dream, had become a selfish excuse to not lose her. That realization made him feel sick, and so he wanted to stop, not out of defeat, but out of respect for the art and for the people who believed in it. Rin flicks Yuu's forehead, grinning as she tells him to get over himself. Yuu stares at her, momentarily stunned by the ease with which she brushes away his heavy thoughts. He envies her spirit, her honesty, her ability to smile no matter what. But Rin shakes her head in denial. She sits beside him and confesses that she's not earnest at all. In fact, she hates helping at her family's store. She only joined the school band because a friend asked her to. There's nothing noble about the things she does. She admits she's secretly happy whenever he and Himari argue, because those are the rare moments she gets to be alone with him. Then she turns to him with her usual gentle smile and asks if he thinks it's strange that she keeps confessing to him even though he's turned her down so many times. Yuu nods, admitting that it kind of is. But Rin shrugs, still smiling. She says she can't help it, she's still in love with him. Even just hearing him say her name makes her world feel brighter. Yuu lowers his gaze, guilt bubbling up in his chest. He apologetically turns her down again, his voice soft, but Rin only chuckles and assures him it's okay. She tells him that his reason for making accessories, keeping Himari close, isn't something to be ashamed of. Everyone has their own reasons for doing things. If his creations make people happy, that's a bonus. If they disappoint someone due to a silly rumor, that's on them, not him. She clarifies she isn't going to tell him to go back to making accessories. That's his choice. But whatever he decides, she'll support him. She adds, however, that choosing to make accessories also means choosing Himari. So he needs to decide not just what he wants to do, but who he wants to be with. Yuu goes quiet. He stares at her, considering her words. He knows a life with Rin would be a happy one, warm and calm. But it would also mean letting go of Himari. After a long moment, he offers Rin an apologetic smile, since he decides to choose Himari. Rin lets out a breath and nods, accepting defeat with grace. She admits she always knew she was still far behind Himari in his heart. Standing, she offers her hand and tells him it's time they talk things out. They find Himari in her family's garden watering the plants. She greets them with her usual confidence, but her tone is cold. She refuses to forgive Yuu so easily. She begins to list what he'll need to do to earn her forgiveness, until Rin interrupts, giving her a noogie. With a sigh, Himari drops the act. She admits she lied about leaving for Tokyo. Yuu, without hesitation, forgives her. He tells her she's his most important person. Himari, flustered, dumps the contents of her watering can over herself. Rin rushes inside to grab a towel, leaving Himari and Yuu alone to talk things out. Himari tells Yuu that she loves watching him make accessories, so when he's ready to start again, he should let her know. Yuu admits the truth. She's the reason he continues to make them. Blushing, Himari tries to hide her happiness behind a confident smirk. She jokingly asks if they should start dating. As expected, Yuu refuses and things begin to feel like they'll be returning to normal. But just as summer break begins, a new arrival steps into town. Kureya exits the plane and is immediately greeted by Shinji. Without delay, they begin to talk about Yuu. Back in the earlier years of their friendship, Yuu gets along with his classmates fairly well. But even then, Himari tends to keep him close. She often cuts into his conversations even if they don't involve her, making it clear she doesn't like sharing him with others. Yuu doesn't complain, he's used to it. In fact, he often welcomes her interruptions, seeing it as part of their dynamic. At one point, they let another boy into their group. The three of them hang out often and Yuu grows comfortable with the setup, appreciating the balance. Himari seems fine with it too, at least on the surface. He remembers a particular memory clearly. He and their new friend had been eating in the science lab, sharing lunch when their male friend suddenly asks if he could spend Christmas alone with Himari instead of all three of them hanging out at the exhibit they were going to participate in. Yuu agrees, though uncertain. That same day, he lies to Himari, telling her the school's Christmas exhibit has been canceled. When Christmas comes, Yuu goes to the exhibit alone. He quietly sets up his flower arrangement and later spends his break with their teacher, Yumi, who's overseeing the event. Still bothered by the lie and unsure if he made the right choice, he asks Yumi about her thoughts on friendship. She compares it to growing flowers, saying they thrive under the right conditions and sometimes grow best together. The metaphor doesn't quite click with Yuu, but it lingers in his mind. He returns to his table. He closes his eyes briefly to collect his thoughts, but quickly opens them when he hears a familiar voice. Himari has found him and has decided to tease him for resting. She admits that she did go out with their friend. However, the day was a disappointment. Their friend had confessed and she had rejected him. She hoped all three of them would be together like usual, and the sudden shift in plans left her uneasy. Yuu tells her the truth, that he allowed their friend the chance to be with her, hoping they could possibly become a couple since he knows their friend would be good for her. But Himari only smiles sadly, revealing she had known all along that the boy had been using Yuu to get close to her. She had kept quiet, hoping the guy would change and that he genuinely wanted to be friends with Yuu. Yuu feels foolish for being used, but the disappointment fades quickly. With Himari by his side again, things feel normal. The exhibit is quiet, so they walk around together. Himari's attention catches on a wreath made of small sunflowers. She guesses it's Yuu's and tells him why. She knows he often uses her as inspiration and sunflowers mean Himari. Yuu doesn't confirm it aloud, but she's right. That piece had been dedicated to her. In the language of flowers, sunflowers mean, I only see you, and that had been the silent message he poured into the design. Still staring at the wreath, Himari makes a casual request. She asks him not to set her up with anyone again. She admits she doesn't like the idea of dating someone if it means she has to leave you behind. If either of them ever ends up in a relationship, she insists it has to happen at the same time, so neither one is left alone. Back then, and after their quiet moment with the wreath, Himari makes you promise to always see her, a sentiment she says half in jest, half in vulnerability. Afterward, he timidly asks her what she thinks of his sunflower wreath. But instead of praising it, Himari bluntly tells him that it feels incomplete. She says it still lacks something important, and because of that, she wants to see it again once it's truly finished. In the present, the morning begins quietly. Himari wakes with a faint memory of the past, thinking about how she's never been particularly good at making things. Whether it's crafts or cooking, creativity never came easy for her. The thought weighs on her for a moment as she rises and prepares for school. Before heading into the building, she stops by the science club's small garden. It's a habit now, one she took on because Yuu often uses flowers from this patch for his accessories. She spots Yuu ahead of her and immediately rushes up to greet him, her usual energy back in full force. She throws herself at him like always, but Yuu dodges her effortlessly, still focused on the phone in his hands. He walks ahead without a word, his eyes glued to the screen, shielding it from her view. As they walk, she casually suggests they spend a summer evening together, just the two of them. She frames it as something sentimental, since exam season will consume their lives after the break. The jest works as Yuu is startled enough to lower his phone and stare at her, clearly flustered by her boldness. She teases him, playing the best friend card to justify the idea. Yuu avoids eye contact, visibly red in the face as usual when caught off guard by her antics. Before Himari can press further, Ryun arrives. She cups Himari's face and lifts her away from Yuu, aware Himari had caused Yuu embarrassment. Then she slips in beside Yuu, smoothly takes his hand, and leads him back toward the classroom buildings. As she walks away, she throws Himari a mischievous wink, playfully agreeing to the sleepover idea. Himari stands there, watching them walk off hand in hand. She finds herself wondering when and how the two of them became so close so quickly. Later, during lunch, Ryun asks Yuu to feed her, but he's too embarrassed to do it without prompting. To convince him, she pulls out her phone and shows the string of messages he sent earlier that morning, desperate pleas asking her to help him dodge Himari's usual tackle. With no excuse left, he complies, feeding her until her lunch is gone. Yuu reaches for Himari's favorite yogurt drink, hoping it will calm his nerves, but Himari snatches it from his hand. She tells him it's off limits unless all three of them are drinking together. Rin casually suggests that if Yuu finds Himari too cute to be just a friend, then he should probably go ahead and confess already. But Yuu admits that dating Himari isn't something he's completely ready for, not yet, at least. His focus remains on opening his own accessory shop, and love feels like something he wants to approach only after that dream becomes a reality. Hearing that, Rin gives him a soft, knowing smile. She stands up and tells him that it's exactly that kind of resolve that's always made her admire him. Then, with her usual playful spark, she adds that if he's taking his time with Himari, that only gives her more chances to catch up and maybe win his heart in the end. Yuu hides his face with his hands, completely embarrassed to be on the receiving end of another one of Ryun's open confessions. Later, after school, Yuu heads toward the science club's garden to water the flowers like usual. Along the way, he passes Shinji, who's practicing seriously for the upcoming tournament. Yuu doesn't get a chance to greet him properly though, because Himari suddenly lunges at him from behind. She quickly clings to his arm instead and asks him to accompany her to pick out a swimsuit after he's done with the garden. Yuu immediately jumps back, startled by the idea, scolding her for inviting a guy to go swimsuit shopping. But halfway through his own protest, he remembers that they had gone together last year without it being a big deal. Flustered, he tries to recover his composure and quickly suggests they ask Ryun to come too. Before Himari can say anything, he runs off to message Ryun. He waits for her by the vending machine, hoping she'll agree to tag along. When Ryun finally shows up, her unimpressed expression says it all. She hits him with her signature iron claw, leaving him on the ground when she lets go. She tells him bluntly to just decline the invitation if he's so bothered. He tries to reason with her, saying Himari is his best friend, but Ryun sees through him immediately. She knows he's curious to see Himari in a swimsuit again. With a sigh, she informs him that she has band practice anyway, so he's on his own. Yuu and Himari make it to the mall together. The moment they step inside, Yuu starts panicking as the swimsuit section comes into view. He considers escaping, but Himari grabs his tie before he can bolt. Almost shyly, she admits she wants his help because she wants to pick something he'd actually like seeing her in. Yuu grows noticeably shy, and Himari, spotting the opportunity, lets go of his tie with a smirk. She attempts to grab his arm to pull him inside, but Yuu sidesteps her grip and walks ahead. Himari quickly recovers, raising several swimsuit designs in her hands. Yuu, reluctantly glancing back, realizes that Himari really does understand his taste when it comes to what he enjoys seeing. She casually announces her decision to try them on, leaving Yuu even more anxious about the situation. After waiting, Himari finally peeks out from behind the changing room curtain and calls out to him. He starts to approach, only to freeze when Himari teases him that she's wearing a revealing piece. When Himari continues her teasing, tugging at his tie and pulling him closer, Yuu panics. Completely overwhelmed, he abruptly bolts out of the store and races all the way home. Once he arrives, he notices a pair of unfamiliar high heels near the entryway. Sakura greets him from inside and casually mentions that a guest is waiting. A red-haired woman steps into view, introducing herself as Kureha, Ryun's older sister. The three of them gather in the living room. Kureha makes an unexpected request by asking Yuu to give up Himari. Back at school, Himari is in no mood for games. Spotting Shinji on the court, she hurls a ball directly at his head. She accuses him of planting ideas into Yuu's head, which may have caused his odd behavior earlier. Shinji laughs it off, suggesting she should just let Ryun win for once, especially since Yuu seems to be fed up with her antics. Offended, Himari threatens to destroy Shinji's racket. Shinji retaliates by lifting a potted plant, warning her that if she ruins his equipment, he'll return the favor. After a tense moment, Himari relents. Shinji then shrugs, claiming Yuu's behavior has nothing to do with him. If anything, Kureha may be involved. Back at Yuu's house, Kureha explains that Himari had once considered joining her modeling agency in Tokyo. Everything had been lined up until Himari suddenly backed out. Yuu, connecting the dots, apologizes, suspecting that he was the reason for Himari's change of heart. But Kureha waves it off with a calm smile. She instead asks him to convince Himari to reconsider, arguing that Yuu's dream of opening a shop is too far-fetched in such a small prefecture. To further tempt him, she presents a briefcase filled with money, bluntly stating she's willing to buy Himari's future if that's what it takes to secure her. She even offers to have girls from her agency model for Yuu's brand, but before she can continue, Yuu raises his voice, rejecting the proposal. He won't tolerate anyone treating Himari like an object. He's determined to pursue his dream, with Himari beside him. Still composed, Kureha calls Himari's dedication to Yuu a waste of talent. She criticizes Yuu's work, calling it amateurish and uninspired, causing Yuu's face to flush red with frustration. She then offers an ultimatum. He can join them in Tokyo, but only if he gives up his shop. Yuu hesitates. Though if he believes in his dream, he also begins to worry that he might be holding Himari back from a brighter future. Before Kureha can press further, Himari bursts into the room, siding with Yuu and demanding that Kureha stop undermining his aspirations. Hibari explains that Himari had called him aware of Koreha's manipulative tendencies. It's revealed that the two had once dated, and Koreha still holds leverage over him. She flashes a video on her phone that leaves Hibari begging her not to post it. Koreha tries to involve Sakura, but she swats the phone away, refusing to be dragged into the chaos. As Hibari lunges to grab the phone, Koreha smirks, revealing she has more copies. Exhausted by the bickering, Sakura finally steps in. She tells Koreha that Yuu's dream matters too and shouldn't be dismissed so easily. Koreha chooses to ignore her and proposes a deal instead. She challenges Yuu to prove his talent by creating a high-quality accessory before summer ends, with the theme being memories in summer. If he can impress her, she'll back off. Otherwise, she plans to trap Himari in debt and force her into the agency to work it off. Yuu accepts the challenge, not only to prove Koreha wrong, but to prove he's worthy of Himari's unwavering dedication. One summer day, Yuu recalls the evening he finally told Himari and Ryun about everything that had happened between him and Koreha. Himari had immediately pointed fingers at Hibari, blaming his sudden appearance and reckless interference for provoking Koreha into making such an outrageous bet. In her frustration, she even told Hibari that he should just take responsibility and pay off her debt himself. But Hibari refused, arguing that none of this would have happened in the first place if Himari hadn't lied about agreeing to go to Tokyo. While the others argued, Ryum was already scheming, plotting to drag Koreha to meet their parents. Sakura, meanwhile, calmly explained how Koreha operated, how she hadn't changed since they were younger. Koreha used pressure and negativity as fuel to push herself harder, while Yuu, in contrast, always grew best when he felt supported. Hibari then reassured Yuu, saying he still believed in the quality of Yuu's work to ultimately win the bet. Finally piercing a straw through his drink, Yuu steals his resolve and quietly vows to win. Himari finds him on the rooftop and pulls him back down, insisting they start gathering ideas on what summer memories could mean. Despite everything riding on Yuu's work, Himari remains upbeat and cheerful, trusting that he'll pull through. Shiken tells him that if he loses, she'll just join Korea's agency and quit right after. Yuu scolds her for the reckless idea, pointing out how quitting school mid-semester could ruin her chances of getting accepted anywhere else or being taken seriously later on. Unfazed, Himari stares at him and casually says she's not too worried. After all, Yuu once promised to take care of her. That makes Yuu flustered, his cheeks reddening as he stammers and tells her not to phrase things like a proposal. Himari doesn't blink, simply confirming that's what she meant, before finally breaking into laughter as reaction. Still pink in the face, Yuu walks off to the vending machine to grab another yogurt drink as Himari trails behind, trying to charm him again. Ryu then appears, firmly grabs Himari's face to shut her up and flashes Yuu a smile, inviting him to search for summer memories with her. Meanwhile, Hibari finds Shinji buying food from a store. Shinji recognizes him immediately, and the two slip away to talk. Hibari opens with a teasing comment about Shinji's unhealthy meal, saying a top athlete should be more careful. He then throws in a jab about Koreha getting the better of him, making Shinji choke mid-bite. When Shinji counters by mentioning the infamous video, Hibari freezes. Then he leans in, grabbing Shinji by the chin, and tells him to back off since Yuu can handle himself just fine. Meanwhile, Ryu, Yuu, and Himari stop by a breakfast place to enjoy some pancakes while musing over what summer memories could possibly mean. Himari suggests drawing inspiration from beautiful scenery and even volunteers herself and Ryun to help Yuu come up with ideas that might spark something. Ryun, quietly savoring her pancakes, can't help but point out that Himari is awful at coming up with ideas, especially those that aren't suggestive in nature. She even challenges Himari to prove her wrong. Determined not to lose, Himari thinks hard before diving into a story about two friends walking in the rain one summer. But, as expected, her tale takes a turn when she emphasizes how the girl's uniform turns see-through after getting soaked. Just as Ryun predicted, the story becomes too raunchy, prompting Yuu to cut her off by stuffing her mouth with a bite of pancake to keep her from continuing. Himari, unamused, turns the challenge back on Ryun. But Ryun's version is no more helpful, casually mentioning that anywhere is fine as long as she's with Yuu. That response only frustrates Yuu further, realizing their contributions aren't helping him get any closer to a solid concept. He eventually decides the best approach is for them to go on a trip and experience summer moments firsthand. They soon find themselves on a train headed toward the beach. Once there, Yuu snaps photos of Ryun and Himari playing in the water, finding comfort in observing their carefree energy. Having real people, his friends, as models feels far more effective for sparking ideas than drawing from landscapes alone. At one point, the girls start teasing each other about their chest sizes, which leads to a playful chase back into the waves, Ryun clearly having the upper hand. Yuu quietly admires their friendship from the shore, the sight giving him a warm feeling. Later, they escape the sun by ducking into a nearby convenience store to cool off with some ice cream. Yuu reviews the photos on his phone but grows frustrated. The images look great, even Himari and Ryun are happy with the results, but they feel more like promotional ads than genuine memories. Something about them lacks the emotional core he's searching for. Yuu spots two kids playing video games on the sidewalk outside. The sight sparks a memory, leading him to suggest another place to visit. The next day, he brings the girls to a small flower arrangement school he used to attend. Upon entering, they're surprised to find the teacher, Yumi, casually playing video games with a group of kids. Despite the chaos, she welcomes them warmly and lets Yuu browse through the photo albums of past student works. The first photo Yuu sees is one of himself and Himari from middle school. He had once brought her along to class, and judging by the image, Himari didn't exactly excel at flower arranging. Ryun smiles at the photo, remarking that Himari looks really cute with long hair. This catches Yumi's attention, and she casually asks why Himari keeps it short these days. After a moment of thinking, Yumi connects the dots, realizing it's because Yuu once mentioned he prefers short hair on her. Himari's eyes light up, visibly surprised that Yuu had admitted something so specific. She teases him, suggesting he must really like her hair the way it is now if he went out of his way to mention it. Yuu grows visibly flustered, scrambling for a way to deflect the implication. Meanwhile, Ryun begins to twirl her long hair around her finger. Without warning, she declares that she's going to cut it short. The announcement causes Yuu to panic slightly, quickly trying to convince her not to do it. He insists that he likes her hair long and that it would be a waste to chop it off. Yumi watches the scene with amusement and offers the group a chance to try their hand at flower arranging since they'd come all this way. Ryun lights up at the idea, excited to try something new. Himari, on the other hand, declines the offer. Instead, she takes a seat by the engawa, letting the soft sound of the wind chime pull her into quiet thought. Though capable of many things, she muses that creativity has never been her strength. She glances briefly at Yuu and Ryun as they prepare their flowers, then turns her gaze back to the garden, letting herself drift deeper into thought. Eventually, she hears Ryun groaning in frustration. Her creation looks more like a katsudan bowl than a floral centerpiece. The sight makes Himari feel a little bit of comfort, at least she's not alone in struggling with this. Yuu begins offering Ryun some gentle advice, guiding her step by step. Under his instruction, Ryun's arrangement quickly transforms into something delicate and beautiful. Himari watches silently, feeling lost again since Ryun was able to do it with only a little guidance. At the sink, she splashes water on her face. She stares at her reflection, at her short hair. The reason she cut it wasn't really style. It had been after the accident, when her hair got singed by fire because she startled Yuu during his work. She had told him she just wanted a change, but it was really to stop him from feeling guilty. She wonders now if Yuu truly prefers long hair after all, if Ryun fits the image of the girl he really likes. When she returns to the engawa, only Yumi is there, watering the plants. Yumi casually asks if Ryun is the hibiscus girl from Yuu's old stories. Himari nods, confirming that Ryun has loved Yuu for 7 years. Yumi then asks if Yuu feels the same. Himari answers honestly that he probably does, even if he won't admit it out loud. Yumi smiles softly before turning to tease Himari about her own crush on Yuu. Himari immediately tries to brush it off with a flustered protest, but before she can say much, Yuu and Ryun return to the room. Yuu enters announcing his decision to base his next piece on sunflowers. He shows them an old photo, a small sunflower wreath he made for their middle school exhibit. Himari instantly recognizes it. Yuu had crafted it with her in mind. Seeing that he still thinks of it and now wants to do a piece around it fills her with a quiet warmth. She nods and agrees that using sunflowers is a perfect idea. But then Yuu credits Ryun for finding the photo and suggesting it. Himari's smile falters. The idea didn't come from Yuu, it came from Ryun. She tries not to let her expression show anything. Yumi cheerfully interjects, suggesting they all visit a nearby sunflower festival. Everyone agrees, though in the end, Ryun stays behind to help with her family's shop. A few days later, Himari and Yuu sit on a train bound for the festival. Yuu takes the seat behind her, saying he's going to eat breakfast. But as he pulls out his food, he realizes he forgot to bring a drink. Himari hands him a bottle of green tea. Her voice is calm when she asks if he's thinking about Ryun. Yuu is thrown off by the implication, so Himari explains that he's been avoiding her lately, and she assumes it's out of consideration for Ryun's feelings. He doesn't answer right away. The truth that his feelings for Himari have grown too much to ignore is something he can't admit. So he lies, brushing her concern off as just her imagination. Himari reaches over for her own tea. She takes a dramatic gulp and says it's to test his supposed love for Ryun. Then she gets up, announcing that she'll buy him a new bottle from the vending machine. Yuu tries to insist on going himself, but Himari is already halfway down the aisle, leaving him confused by her strange behavior. At the vending machine, Himari's thoughts spiral. She worries about what might happen to their friendship if it turns out Yuu truly loves Ryun. She knows Ryun is cuter, softer, more ideal. She remembers Shinji confronting her about lying over Tokyo, calling out how spoiled she is by Yuu, and it's true. Yuu would sacrifice everything for her, but she knows she can't give him the same in return. She's been selfish, she realizes. Ryun is the better match. Ryun would treasure Yuu the way he deserves. When they finally reach the festival, Yuu lights up at the sight of thousands of sunflowers swaying in the breeze. Himari tries to keep him focused, reminding him they came here to find a flower he can use, but Yuu is enchanted. He weaves through the field, eyes sharp, searching for the perfect sunflower to use. He finds one, a golden vibrant bloom, and vows to make something beautiful with it by the time he faces Kureha, a piece for Himari to wear. They continue walking to search for backups as Himari tries to get his attention, but he's too focused on the flowers. Frustrated but confident that he cannot hear her, she mumbles her confession and turns around to walk away. To her surprise, Yuu calls out to her, and Himari turns back, bracing herself to explain her feelings to him. Instead, he lightly scolds her, catching on that she's trying to bait him again. Her face burns. Feeling foolish, Himari spins around and bolts, trying to escape before the tears sting her eyes. Yuu attempts to go after her but loses her in a tall field of sunflowers. Himari's foot catches and she tumbles onto the soft ground. She hears him searching and quietly calls her location, even though her voice is barely above a whisper. To her surprise, Yuu finds her. He approaches gently and she presses something into his hands, the necklace with the ring. Without hesitation, she pulls in close and kisses him. Yuu carefully packs up the sunflowers he picked at the festival, gently storing them to avoid damaging the petals. These are the flowers he'll be using to create accessories for his upcoming bet with Kureha. The pressure of the past week catches up to him in waves when his eyes land on the necklace with Himari's ring resting nearby. Suddenly, he is interrupted by the memory of the kiss they shared amidst the sunflower fields. Feeling his mind muddle and struggle to think of a reason for Himari's action, he opens the locker to where he stores flowers he has secretly cultivated. On impulse, he begins talking to them as if the petals can offer some kind of advice. Shinji walks in and catches him mid-sentence, calling him out with an eyebrow raised. Snapping out of his daze, Yuu turns to him and asks if he's in on Kureha's plans to sabotage him. Shinji quickly denies it, explaining that while Kureha had asked for help gathering intel, she acted on her own. Hearing this, Yuu tries to recruit him instead, asking Shinji to help with his side of the bet. But Shinji refuses, revealing that his priority is staying in Kureha's good graces because he has a crush on her. Yuu is stunned, but before he can even tease him, Shinji blurts out that he overheard Yuu confessing to the flowers about the kiss with Himari. Curious, Shinji asks if Yuu has already confessed to her properly. Yuu admits that he hasn't, insisting the sunflower trip was purely for gathering inspiration, not emotions. Shinji grows invested in the situation, pointing out that things between Yuu and Himari are bound to shift now. He warns that Yuu needs to focus on the competition first and deal with his feelings later. After Shinji leaves, Yuu reflects on what was said. He knows Shinji is right. Regardless of how he feels about Himari, if he doesn't win the bet, he'll lose her anyway. His emotions have to wait. For now, the bet takes precedence. Elsewhere, Himari devours a plate of gyoza she made to distract herself. The moment she finishes, she's left with nothing but her thoughts, and the weight of what happened at the sunflower field crashes down on her. She buries her face into her arms, mentally scolding herself for kissing Yuu. She grabs her phone, debating whether or not to message him. The panic builds as she wonders if Yuu hates her now. Before she can send anything, Himari knocks and asks to come in. Himari freezes, fearing he'll interrogate her about the trip. She tries to escape through the window, only to find her brother already waiting outside. Cornered, she eventually confesses to kissing Yuu. To her surprise, Himari doesn't scold her. Instead, he praises her for finally being honest about her feelings. Then with a smirk, he muses that if Yuu rejects her, it'll be the perfect opening for him to steal Yuu for himself. Deciding the conversation is over, Himari heads to the kitchen, only to discover the entire plate of gyoza is gone. He immediately yells at her for eating all of it. The next day, he finds himself back in the science lab inspecting the sunflowers he's preserved for his accessory project. But his mind keeps drifting back to the kiss at the sunflower festival. Rin eventually walks into the lab, her usual calm presence cutting through Yuu's mental haze. She walks over, curious about the state of the flowers. As they begin discussing the progress, she casually asks if Himari really did kiss him during a trip. Caught off guard but not fully thinking, Yuu admits it without hesitation. In response, Rin flicks a bottle cap at his head, hitting him with impressive accuracy. They end up having lunch together, seated at opposite ends of the long lab table. In between bites, Rin admits she regrets not joining them on the trip. Yuu, with a newfound confidence, announces that he plans to confess to Himari once his bet with Kureha is done. Rin simply shrugs, telling him no one's stopping him. Still, she makes it clear that even if they start dating, she has no plans of giving up on him. She jokes that all she has to do is become Himari's best friend, then she'll have a front row seat to steal Yuu back. With her usual teasing smile, she heads toward the door, only to find Himari entering the lab at that very moment. Without missing a beat, Rin grabs Himari's face in her usual manner, then leaves for band practice once she is sure her irritation towards Himari is clear. Yuu and Himari are left alone. They don't speak right away, so Himari quietly busies herself with watering the small plants in Yuu's garden shelf. After a while, Yuu tells her he has something important to say but says he'll share it after the bet with Kureha concludes. Seizing the moment, Yuu removes one of the preserved sunflowers from the rack. Himari looks at it curiously, asking what he plans to make. Yuu reveals that he's going to craft his sunflower tiara. Himari's eyes light up, her face breaking into a radiant smile that makes Yuu's heart skip a beat. He realizes he's even more in love with that smile than he thought. Later that afternoon, the three of them, Yuu, Rin, and Himari, grab dinner at a burger shop. As they go over their plans for the upcoming Obon festival, it becomes clear that both Himari and Ryun will be too busy to help Yuu finish his piece. With the school closing for the summer break, Yuu worries he won't have a proper place to work. Without hesitation, Himari offers her home, mentioning that Hibari will be staying in anyway. Yuu accepts, grateful for the opportunity. Over the break, he spends his days at Himari's place, working meticulously in her living room. Hibari frequently checks in, bringing delicious meals and observing Yuu's progress. When the final touches are done, Hibari inspects the tiara and admits it might be Yuu's best work yet. The next day, they decide to celebrate with drinks. Hibari suggests raising a toast in front of the tiara, confident that Yuu will win the bet. Yuu proudly lifts the box to show off the sunflower tiara, but the moment he opens it, his heart sinks. Some of the petals have clearly wilted. The once vibrant yellows are now dull and limp, the crown losing its luster. Yuu realizes with a gut-wrenching jolt that he had miscalculated the preservation process. He took the sunflowers out of the dehydration solution too early. Hibari kneels beside him, inspecting the damage and considering alternatives. But Yuu already knows that there's no time left to fix it, and he used his spare flowers as prototypes. Hibari offers to drive Yuu to the sunflower fields, but Yuu quickly points out that Hibari has just been drinking and is in no condition to get behind the wheel. Despite the setback, they still make the trip using a taxi, holding on to the small hope that Yuu can remake the tiara in just 3 days. 3 days later, Himari is back and napping peacefully on Yuu's lap, while he carefully places the final touches on the new sunflower tiara. Hibari walks in just as Himari begins to stir, and the two join Yuu in examining the completed piece. Himari is immediately drawn to its charm, falling in love with the soft arrangement of the sunflowers and its gentle, intricate form. Hibari takes a longer look, but ultimately agrees that the result is impressive, especially considering Yuu had to rebuild everything under pressure. Later that day, they are joined by Ryun and Sakura as they prepare to present the new tiara to Kureha. When Kureha opens the box, her face softens with visible delight. The tiara's elegance and craftsmanship impresses her immediately. She comments on its bridal style, admiring how refined and polished it looks. Yu starts to believe he might have pulled it off, that perhaps Kureha will acknowledge the effort and declare him the winner. However, Kureha ultimately refuses to accept the tiara as something noteworthy. She admits it's a good product, but it doesn't meet the standards she expects from Yuu. She explains that while it is aesthetically pleasing, it lacks the depth and intention that should come from his best work. She calls out the rush effort and expresses disappointment over the fact that Yuu tried to pass it off without being honest about its backstory. Yuu's growing frustration only worsens when Kureha reveals she already knew about the wilting petals and the rushed remake. She attributes this knowledge to Sakura, who has informed her in advance. When Yuu glances at Sakura, she is quietly eating her snacks, unfazed by the accusations. Kureha finishes by stating that she never intended to be unfair. If the product had truly met the criteria she laid out, she would have admitted defeat, but trying to deceive her with an incomplete effort only reinforced her decision. After she leaves with Ryun, Sakura finally approaches the rest of the group. Yuu immediately questions her, trying to understand why she exposed everything. Sakura explains that Yuu trying to pass off a bad product is already a clear sign he shouldn't be making accessories anymore. To prove her point, Sakura simply sets down a box and urges him to take a closer look. Inside are the accessories he had worked on right before he had to stop selling to students. The pieces are now showing signs of deterioration. Some flowers have begun to wilt, and the quality of several pieces has clearly suffered. It becomes obvious that even his earlier efforts weren't as flawless as he believed. Before, Yuu's only problem was that they lacked variation. It was the reason she challenged him to try making a wider range of accessories with different tones and moods. But ever since Yuu's feelings for Himari had deepened, Sakura noticed a shift in his work. His technical skill remained, but the pieces themselves lacked focus and clarity. His heart, once the source of inspiration, had now become a distraction. She tells him bluntly that he isn't ready to become a professional creator if he allows his emotions to take over his process. She claims that his future clients shouldn't be the ones to suffer over his emotions. If he wants to turn this into a livelihood, he must learn to separate the personal from the professional. She tells him he should feel ashamed for even thinking the tiara, no matter how lovely, was good enough to pass off, because it wasn't just about aesthetics, it had a lot to do with his work ethic. Yuu lowers his head in shame, the sting of her words cutting deeper because he knows she's right. Refusing to look at Himari, he mutters that she should forget his promise to speak with her. Himari looks stunned, but before she can say anything, Hibari gently instructs her to begin heading home. Left alone with Sakura, Yuu stares down at one of his old hairpin creations. The charm is still there, but now all he can see are the flaws, the parts he hadn't noticed before. The next day, Himari finds herself in need of clarity. She calls Shinji, hoping to find clarity over the situation. He assures her he has no hand in Kureha's schemes. When she mentions staying in town to keep her promise to Yuu, Shinji surprises her by suggesting the opposite. If she truly wants to support Yuu, he suggests that leaving might be the right thing to do. By working as a model in Tokyo, she can gain influence, raise visibility for Yuu's accessories, and one day help elevate his business. Himari hesitates, the idea of being far from Yuu tightening in her chest. But Shinji continues. If her feelings are real and Yuu's feelings are true, they won't fade with distance. Besides, Ryun will still be here, and she can watch over Yuu. Himari touches where the ring around her neck used to be, unsure of how to proceed. Before parting, Shinji promises her that if she and Yuu still choose each other in the end, he'll support their relationship completely. Later, Himari goes over to Yuu's house and invites him out. With a playful tone, she tells him not to cheat while she's away, though Yuu reminds her they aren't officially dating. She teases him, saying someone like Ryun wouldn't stand a chance because of her. But her voice turns solemn as she shares her decision to become a real model, to build something meaningful so that one day she can promote Yuu's work properly. If she succeeds, she says, they can return to the same dream. However, if Yuu chooses to prioritize their current love, she can just ask her grandfather to pay off the debt. Then, cupping Yuu's face with one hand, she asks what he would choose, for her to stay and love him now or let her go and see what the future holds. Yuu looks at her, almost overcome with the urge to ask her to remain. But when she refuses to listen to his answer if he chooses their present love, he grabs her hand and softly agrees. They'll walk separate paths for now, and maybe, if the world is kind, they'll find their way back. But he also accepts the bitter truth that they may no longer love each other in the future. As Himari packs her things, she can't help but hate her situation. Now that she and Yuu have finally acknowledged their feelings for each other, they're being forced apart by fate. Meanwhile, Ryun wakes up to the sweltering heat of summer. As she changes out of her clothes, she flips on the air conditioning, planning to relax for the day since she doesn't have band practice and she's well aware that Yuu isn't in the mood to see anyone, especially her. Just as she gets comfortable, her mother calls her downstairs and asks her to deliver some cakes to Shinji. Kureha, who was supposed to handle the delivery, had already left the house. Begrudgingly, Ryun takes the package and makes her way to Shinji's home. When she arrives, she finds him unusually cheerful about Himari leaving for Tokyo. Ryun stares at him in disgust. She casually remarks how rare it is to find him at home instead of out chasing after some girl. Shinji shrugs and sits on a bench beside the court near his house. Ryun walks over, prepared to hand him the bag of cakes, but at the last second, pulls it away from his reach. Shinji immediately notices something's bothering her and asks about it. Ryun admits she isn't happy about how Kureha is trying to take Himari away. She wonders aloud if Shinji could possibly do something about the situation. At first, Shinji refuses to get involved, but then Ryun plays to his ego, mentioning that Kureha would probably be impressed if he managed to outsmart her. The thought catches his attention and he stands walking back onto the court to continue practicing. Ryun watches him and calls out that everything he does is all to impress Kureha. If that's true, then helping Himari stay might just be his best shot at finally getting her attention. To her surprise, Shinji misses his serve. He finally agrees to help, but before committing, he asks if Ryun is truly okay with this because it could mean Himari wins Yuu's heart in the end. Ryun acknowledges it and says that she'd rather lose fairly than win by default. She admits that while Yuu may currently love Himari, she's confident that one day she'll win his heart. Elsewhere, Himari is driving when his phone suddenly rings. He pulls over to take the call, only to be shocked by the identity of the caller. Back at school, Yuu is tending to the garden. He's already beginning to feel the ache of Himari's absence, knowing that soon he'll be the only member of the gardening club. He figures this loneliness will stretch all the way until he finally opens his shop. But as he reflects more, darker thoughts creep in. There's no guarantee Himari will ever come back. Just as he realizes he's spiraling, he abruptly stands and tries to shake it off. That's when he hears Shinji call out to him. Shinji walks over, having sensed something was off. He learns from Yuu that Himari is leaving by noon. Remembering Yuu's earlier determination to follow her to Tokyo, Shinji hints that Yuu should follow her to Tokyo again. Yuu tries to argue that the last time he considered following Himari to Tokyo, the situation was different. However, Shinji quickly counters his reasoning, stating that there's no shame in choosing to devote one's life to the person they love. If Yuu truly loves Himari, he doesn't need to continue making accessories or pursue a career as an artist. He can simply choose love and live a fulfilling life. Shinji then makes a bold accusation that Yuu doesn't actually love Himari. If he did, there wouldn't even be a debate. Instead, Yuu is letting Himari go to Tokyo on her own while he remains behind to continue his craft. Yuu snaps, his hand shoots out, grabbing Shinji by the collar as he screams at him. He tells him he has no idea how deeply, overwhelmingly in love he is with Himari. When Yuu finally lets go, Shinji drops to the ground, winded but smiling. He softly states that he's done his part. He's helped Yuu realize just how much Himari means to him. With his chest pounding and heart reeling, Yuu takes off. A sudden surge of energy floods his body, driven by the desire to be with Himari. Memories of their time together play rapidly in his mind. His legs ache and he stumbles, falling hard to the pavement, but even that doesn't stop him. The images of Himari stay vivid and sharp, fueling him to keep going. Meanwhile, Himari waits by the station, her suitcase by her side. She stares at her phone and sees a message from Koreha stating that she's stuck in traffic. Himari takes this extra time to wrestle with her thoughts. The weight of her decision bears down on her, especially when she thinks about Ryun. She knows how Ryun feels about Yuu. Despite rooting for Ryun in the beginning, Himari still acted on her own feelings and kissed Yuu the moment the opportunity arose. Korea had once told her that she could go far with her looks. That thought offers her some comfort. At least she could help Yuu from afar by using her platform as a model. But that comfort is replaced quickly with the ache of separation. The thought of no longer seeing Yuu makes her chest tighten as tears begin to fall from her eyes. Just then, a familiar voice calls out. Himari turns to see Ryun standing behind her. Quickly wiping her tears, she thanks Ryun for coming to see her off. She even makes a jab, noting how Yuu hadn't even replied to any of her messages. Ryun smiles warmly and thanks Himari for forfeiting their match. Startled, Himari tries to explain that the kiss was just something friends might do, nothing serious. Still smiling, Ryun tells Himari that she needs to stop lying to herself. Himari insists that everything she's doing is for her and Yuu's dream. But Ryun challenges the idea, pointing out that if Himari isn't happy, then the dream might not be worth it. That's when Himari breaks. She blurts out that only she can do it, and that if Ryun thinks it's so easy, then she should go to Tokyo and model instead. To Himari's surprise, Ryun agrees. She steps closer, gently takes Himari's hand, and tells her she'll go in her place. But in exchange, Himari has to give Yuu to her. Himari's eyes shake with shock at Ryun's suggestion. The offer sounds absurd since giving up her love for Yuu isn't something she can agree to. She slaps Ryun's pinky promise away, unable to even entertain the idea of such a deal. Ryun smiles softly, glad that Himari is finally being a little more honest with herself. Himari's tears begin to fall freely and she tackles Ryun to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. She confesses that she doesn't want to leave but feels responsible for the entire mess. Ryun gently comforts her, wrapping her arms around her as she reminds Himari that both she and Yuu are too fixated on the future. They keep planning and planning, forgetting to live in the present. She shares how her own mother had once turned a simple hobby into a business, something no one could have predicted. Ryun's voice is gentle as she explains that while planning for the future is important, it's equally vital to live in the moment. She tells Himari that she doesn't believe for a second that Yuu values his dream shop more than he values her. Just then, a familiar voice calls out. Both girls turn their heads and see Yuu running towards them, breathless but determined. Without hesitation, he rushes straight to Himari, grabbing her shoulders and pleads with her not to leave for Tokyo. Himari tries to explain that she's doing it for both of them, as it is the only way to help. But Yuu interrupts, telling her he knows deep down she doesn't want to go. He confesses that he was afraid to lose her, which is why he became obsessed with planning for a future where they could be together, even if it meant enduring time apart. But now he realizes that there's no point in chasing a future that makes them suffer in the present. Before Himari can respond, Koreha arrives, calling them out for playing unfairly. She argues that they cannot back out of the deal since Yuu had lost. Yuu immediately begs for another chance to prove himself, but Koreha refuses, reminding him that the Himari owes her a large sum of money. Suddenly, Shinji's voice cuts through the tension. From the nearby balcony, he tosses down a heavy bag. He announces that he'll be paying off the debt himself. Ryun scolds him for being so late, and Shinji defends himself, explaining the bag is heavy. He then credits Himari for lending him the money. As if on cue, Himari arrives in his car. Shinji explains that since he was never part of the original deal, he could easily borrow the money and settle Himari's debt. Korea glares at him, clearly taken aback by his sudden betrayal. Shinji smirks and reminds her that she refused his help when he initially offered it. Now that the debt is covered, he asks if she still has a problem. Korea narrows her eyes and looks at the trio standing in front of her. With a frustrated sigh, she gives up. Marching toward Himari's car, she starts kicking it repeatedly, blaming him for ruining everything. As she continues her tantrum, she demands to be taken somewhere cool. Unable to argue with her, Himari hastily picks up the discarded bag of money and grumbles under his breath before returning to his car. As she and Himari drive off, Shinji joins them and tells them that they all owe him big time, especially Himari. Looking at their stunned expressions, he decides to take advantage of the moment and lays out a list of conditions, such as no one was allowed to quit high school or move to Tokyo. Lastly, they're all forced to keep making accessories together. He declares that this new arrangement will stand at least until graduation. He explains with a chuckle that the love comedy they've got going is just too entertaining to let go. Now that most of the drama is out of the way, he suggests celebrating with a meal. And since Himari owes him the most, he insists that she pays. At the sushi restaurant, Ryun and Shinji enjoy the spread with carefree grins, while Himari and Yuu grow increasingly anxious about the bill that's surely racking up. Later, as the sun begins to set, Yuu and Himari walk home together. Himari complains about Yuu's friendship with Shinji. She warns that hanging around him too much will only bring trouble. Then, with a playful grin, she boasts that Yuu probably wouldn't survive without her keeping him out of trouble, especially now that they're supposed to open a shop together. To her surprise, Yuu stops and admits he's been thinking about abandoning that dream. Himari turns to him wide-eyed. He explains that his recent struggles, particularly Sakura's harsh but necessary scolding, made him realize that he's not yet ready to be a business owner. His work ethic needs refining, especially when it comes to how he treats clients. For so long, he had fixated on opening a shop, thinking it was the only path for him. But now he realizes that mindset has been limiting. He admits he forgot why he started preserving flowers in the first place. Now he wants to aim higher, not just to achieve small wins, but to create something more meaningful and lasting. And more importantly, he wants to make sure Himari never has to sacrifice anything for his sake again. Then softly, he confesses that he'd be happiest if Himari could promise to stay by his side forever. Her cheeks flush red at the declaration, and she struggles to find words. Before she can speak, Yuu bursts into laughter, teasing her for looking so flustered. Himari scolds him, upset that he ruined such a touching moment. Yuu then pulls out the choker and ring he once gave her. Himari's eyes begin to fill with worry, wondering if this means they're still just best friends. But Yuu explains he meant to say something more when he gave it to her, but chickened out at the time. A few days later, Himari is watering the garden in the early morning when Yuu finally arrives. She teases him, saying he owes her since she covered for him earlier. Leaning in close, she tells him to say how much he loves her, but she leans too far and ends up pulling them both to the ground. Yuu looks into her eyes and confesses once again he loves her more than anything in the world. Himari blushes and giggles, visibly touched. Yuu leans in to kiss her, but before he can, Shinji's voice rings out, scolding them for displaying affection so early in the morning. As they look toward him, they spot Ryun as well. Himari accuses them of trying to steal Yuu away from her again, but Ryun pulls out 2 bags of cookies. She says she just wanted to share some sweets with them. Yuu immediately sits between Shinji and Ryun to take the cookies, while Himari joins them, her irritation forgotten at the promise of sweets. The rest of the day is spent in joyful company, and for Yuu, it's more than enough. He has the girl he loves by his side and friends to help him make this summer truly unforgettable.
Take